Good morning and welcome to the Mike Graham Show. And I'm Mike Graham, of course, and this is the Mike Graham Show. It's coming up to 7 o'clock on Monday, the 30th of March. It's the last Monday in March, ladies and gentlemen. It was a big weekend coming up on Friday as well. It's Good Friday, Easter, although it's being called Bad Friday on the front of the Daily Star this morning. We've got all sorts of different stories to talk to you about. A lot of different front pages today, actually, which are kind of interesting. Prime Minister to meet fuel bosses over shortages, betrayal of the strivers, which we're going to have a go at as well. Cops give up on burglary, Labour rationing NHS referrals, horror on the streets of Derby, all sorts of things going on. But I'm delighted to say we're joined this morning, as we are every Monday, by Emma Wolf. Emma, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
Very nice to see you.
Lovely to be here.
I can only sum it up by, I said this a bit earlier, Julian Jessup, who's an economist we get on from time to time, went away on holiday and he came back and he put a tweet out yesterday going, back from holiday, had a look at the news, I've decided to go back on holiday again, booked another one. Because there's nothing, again, and I've put a thing out this morning saying the clocks went forward, but basically everything else has stayed the same and it's not very good.
It feels worse.
Does?
I don't know why. This last week of March feels really, really... I mean, OK, look, we've only just started the week, so let's be positive.
Yes,
but these last dying dregs of March don't feel great. And can we just say, what is the point of this ridiculous time change?
Yeah.
I mean, we were getting to the point, those of us who get up at 4 or 5 in the morning, getting to the point where it's all light again. You go, oh, good, spring's coming. And now we're back to really, really dark, cold mornings.
Yeah.
And apparently we get a bit more daylight in the evening.
I mean, I did notice last night, it was about 20 past 7.
Yeah, it was nice.
It was very light.
Oh, it's still light. And we all went, oh, it's still light,
but
and it's 7 o'clock.
It was raining, it wasn't great.
What is the point of all this?
Well, I mean, Peter Hitchens is the man to talk to about that. I used to have a sort of biannual conversation with him about it every time the clocks changed, and he said it was a waste of time and that he really didn't think we should change them at all. OK,
when we were... I remember as a kid being told that it was something to do with Scottish school children
that's a myth.
On the Isle of Hebrides, and the rest of us were not meant to let them walk to school in the dark.
There are several theories. That's one theory, which apparently isn't true. Farmers is the other one, which also isn't true. Hitchens says it was invented by some mad German military commander who decided that it would be better for his troops to fight at different times of the day in the summer. Commander. Yeah, something to do with that, in the sort of Prussian War or something. I mean,
do they change the clocks in America?
They do, but they're having a very interesting conversation in
America.
At the
moment, a friend of mine is 4 hours behind, and then it goes back to 5 hours behind.
It goes back to 5. I was talking to my sister yesterday in New York, in Connecticut, and I said, did yours change as well? And she went, no, ours changed a month ago. So they go a month early. And so for the last month, they've been 4 hours behind, which I didn't even know, because... You know, because normally I would be having people on the show and you'd sort of be conscious of it, but because we don't, because of the time we're on, it doesn't happen. But there's a lot of states in America who are saying, we want to do away with summertime altogether. And so there are some states which don't change at all. Right. Which is kind of weird.
This is another thing. When I'm Prime Minister, I've got a growing list of manifesto, and one of them is going to be abolish school holidays, of course, because some people out there are going to be plunged into the hell of Easter holidays like I am at the moment. Secondly,
it's going to be... Have you seen the story in the Times that says having a child doesn't necessarily make you any happier?
It really doesn't. Being a parent does not. It makes you more unhappy. And the other thing is abolishing this time change. Yeah. It's nonsense.
Yeah, I mean, I don't suppose it would make much difference if they did abolish it. I mean, I don't know.
You don't think it would be a vote winner?
I don't think people care. I think people just are so used to doing it. I mean, I get confused. I was saying at the weekend that, you know, there was a time when I used to do the overnight show on Talk Sport, and you'd lose an hour at the beginning.
I did it on Saturday night.
Yeah.
You're doing radio, and suddenly you have to do either an extra hour or an hour goes back, and you've lost an hour, and it's a complete mess.
It is mad. I think the spring one is worse, though, because the hour going forward means that you have an hour less sleep. And when I fell asleep, I was with the dog at the weekend, and because he can't get up the stairs anymore, I sort of fell asleep with him on the floor next to the fire. And I woke up and it was 3 a.m. And I was like, it's actually 4. So I'm sort of toddling up to bed at 4 o'clock. It wasn't great. But then in the autumn, it's even worse because you actually add an hour. So if you're working overnight, like I was, you start the radio show at 1 o'clock, and then suddenly at 2 o'clock you go back to 1 o'clock.
No, but I was working overnight, and I finished at 1, and I thought I was getting up at 4, but I was actually getting up at 3 because 4 became 5 or something.
This is why it's
2
confusing.
become 1. Isn't that the Spice Girls song?
Spice Girls song,
4 become 3.
Yeah. Anyway, listen, there's lots to talk about.
Yeah,
my favourite story, actually, because I don't want to talk about the fuel crisis. I came past the petrol station this morning, and I think diesel is now up to 180 something or other.
It's getting bad.
A litre.
They're going to start rationing it, Mike. This is getting bad.
Well, this is what I don't like the sound of, because we're already hearing these sort of, these sort of social engineering types who are saying, what we could do is ration when you can drive your car, depending on what your number plate is.
Exactly.
I'm not having that.
Exactly. You get every other day you're allowed to drive your car.
Yeah.
I mean, that's shocking.
Get lost.
And I'm not even a driver.
Yeah.
But that is starting to, exactly as you say, social engineering, exerting control.
Right.
It's effectively lockdown by another name.
It's lockdown because if they want to do it now during the so-called fuel crisis to save fuel,
then what?
Then when are they going to do it? Are they going to do it because the weather's not that great, or are they going to do it because there's an election on, or what?
Instead of just dealing with it and drill, baby, drill and all of that and doing what Kemi Badenoch said at the weekend, which is we need to get Britain drilling. Yeah, absolutely right. We've got some good clips to show you this morning, by the way, which we'll get to in a minute. But this is my story of the day, I think, and I'm going to have a meltdown about it in a bit. Daily Mail front page, betrayal of the strivers. Furious benefit claimants get a 6.2% pay rise this week, right? MPs receive £3,300 for a cost of living increase. And, of course, the two-child cap is scrapped. So if you've got loads of kids, you get more money as well. You and I, however, and everybody else who's working for a living, gets bugger all. Sorry, did you just say that the MPs get a cost of living increase?
£3,300.
So they're getting, but they don't pay for their cost. This is the whole point about MPs. We know they do not pay for their cost of living.
And wait for this one, right? The payment will apply to ministers as well as backbenchers, meaning it will be received by senior figures, including Sir Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves.
It is shocking.
So they're actually costing us. The cost of living is going up because of them, because of all the increases in tax that they brought on.
Absolutely.
They're getting almost £3,500 to deal with that. We're not getting it.
It's absolutely
And in fact, worse than that,
ridiculous.
we're paying for that.
We're paying for their cost of living increase. I know they were getting an increase. I didn't know they were
Maybe we should
even...
go back to talking about the clocks. This is going to wind me up massively.
This really winds me up. And there's a lady, and I just have to say it, I'm not going to name her, there's a lady at the school gates who goes from her benefits office and from her claiming on her universal credit to the nail salon. That's what you're paying for.
And none of the people in there are paying any tax either.
No, but you don't. Universal credit is not meant to be for getting your nails done.
No.
Absolutely
So millions
shocking.
of benefit claimants will see their handouts rise by 6.2%, double the rate of inflation.
Yeah.
So how have they figured that out? 6.2%. Next week, Labour will abolish the two-child benefit cap at a cost of £3.5 billion a year. It means basically means-tested benefits like universal credit and child tax credit payments to the first two children, costing families a typical £3,455 in lost benefits for each additional child. So now the more kids you've got, the more benefits you'll get. I
do think that a lot of people, that middle-class working people, actually no, working class, everybody who's working
people.
Yeah, working people, but you know what I mean. People who are going out and earning a living and not claiming and not getting it all for free like the MPs are starting just to think, this is unsustainable. This is just, almost we give up. We're on strike.
I know.
Because this is what you're paying for and getting nothing back.
Well, I feel as though we should organise some kind of, national strike for ordinary people.
But I felt that for a while, and there are these big rallies and things like that, but we don't do it. In Britain, we're not very good at that. The French are much better at going on strike. But we don't do that in Britain. We seem to just take it and take it and take it, and then take more.
No, all that happens in Britain is you get the Far Left Alliance, or whatever they call themselves, the Together Alliance, who have got, they're calling it 500,000 people marching, right? They've got a Twitter account with 4,500 people as members. Where are they getting 500,000 from?
How on earth? And also, the photos showed that it was, it was about 10,000 marching in a small area. It was not
smaller than the UK Unite March, right?
It was
which
not.
BBC questioned and said, oh no, there was only about 50,000 people or 100,000 people there. They didn't question this one when, the organisers go, oh yeah, we had 500,000. The police said, no, you didn't. You had maximum 100,000.
There was not 500,000 people in London yesterday or Saturday. Was it Saturday or Sunday?
I think it was Saturday.
Yeah.
I wasn't here.
Anyway, it was not 500,000 people.
No, but it was full of absolute and utter nutcases. Have a look at this. Hannah Spencer, the fake plumber, and Zach Polanski, the fake Jew. And I'm going to call him that because he claims now not really to be Jewish. He claims now to have Jewish members of his family who are apparently appalled by his behaviour. And he's now saying that he'd rather side with the Islamists for some reason. Anyway, have a look at them. This is their political message, the Green Party.
Again! Who is here for love, unity, solidarity? And who is here for DJ, Gorton and Dee?
And we've got
So that's the new Green Party slogan, Oggy, Oggy, Oggy. Oi, oi, oi! I thought that was a Welsh thing.
Absolutely.
Isn't it? What is going on? She's a sitting MP, right? Now, I don't mind people having a bit of fun, that's fine. But, you know, there's gyrating members of the gay community pouncing about in what can only be described as bondage gear, you know. Oh, again, fine. If you want to have a party, and you want, you know, it's fine. But, you know, what's the political message here exactly?
We're complete idiots.
We're complete idiots, you know. Oggy,
and the
oggy,
country
oggy.
is not safe in our hands.
No, and yet they think, you know what's terrifying?
There aren't enough people that would actually be that crazy to vote for them. I know.
No, London,
I know
apparently they're going to sweep the London elections, because you can imagine London being London, which is already quite left-wing. They're quite good at organising young people to get out and vote. And they'll get the Muslim vote. And they will sweep London.
I don't know. I mean, look, we are both living in London separately. We're both living in London. I don't hear a lot of people saying they're going to vote Green. It is worrying. It's very worrying. But I mean, on Friday...
Well, I've never heard anybody saying they're going to vote for Steve Khan either. But he's
I know. And did you
him.
see, I'm sure you discussed it on Friday, the news about Starmer going to make him a Lord.
I know.
It's like, how much worse can things get?
Yeah, Lord Khan. And I think he's only doing it to stop him from becoming Prime Minister. I mean, it really is quite pathetic, isn't it? There's lots of messages coming in, actually, which I should be reading out, but I'm not. So we'll come back to that in a minute. But there's some ridiculous stuff that's happened over the weekend as well, because,
really
of course,
bad.
PhoneGate. Most of the papers have ignored it. I think
I think the papers, I mean, it is so crazy now, the point at which they are not answering questions. Very valid. This isn't conspiracy theory stuff. Like Kemi Badenoch was saying yesterday, this isn't actually conspiracy theory stuff. This is really simple questions. We discussed it last Monday.
We did.
You know, do phones, do messages really, really just disappear?
Right.
Is there a digital footprint, or are they stored on a hard drive somewhere? Or are they completely... Oh, no, but they're encrypted, therefore they completely disappear.
Yeah. So there's now two schools of thought now, because they're now saying, instead of, because Trevor Phillips, will play that in a second.
And there are lots more mobiles as well.
Well, apparently he's got two other phones, and I said this last week. Why are they not asking for those, please, to be brought in, right?
One burner, one personal,
one
government,
personal, one work phone.
One for, I don't know, other purposes. I mean, really.
Who knows? But here's what we do know, is now at least questions are being asked about why is it not backed up? Because now they're trying to pivot around to say, oh, well, it's not that it wasn't backed up, but it was wiped, which you can do. You know, if you lose your phone, you can wipe it.
Yeah.
But that still doesn't do away with the cloud. And that still doesn't explain why it wasn't in the cloud.
It wipes it on the phone.
Yeah.
Again,
right.
The device doesn't store it anywhere but on the phone. I mean, that's irrelevant.
Well,
And
let's have a look. This is Bridget Phillipson, right? And we've got Intel lady coming on later on who'll probably do a very good Bridget Phillipson. This is Bridget Phillipson, the Secretary of State for Education, talking about this at the weekend.
Why is Morgan McSweeney the only person in the modern world who doesn't have his messages automatically backed up to the cloud so that we can recover them and see what traffic there was between him and our former ambassador to the United States?
I mean, I think your question's a bit of a reach in terms of
Why?
that. Well, I'm not. It's hyperbole, and you know it. But
no, it's perfectly straightforward. Are your messages backed up?
I follow all of the guidance offered to ministers
your messages
on what is required.
Why aren't Morgan McSweeney's?
What happened here, which we all know, is that Morgan McSweeney was mugged, reported that to the police, followed all of the processes that were asked of him. And I do think,
I'm not questioning that.
And I do think some of this wider coverage is drifting into drifting into conspiracy theory territory.
I'm not questioning any of that. The government's inquiring into all sorts of things to do with Peter Mandelson and so on. We're hearing that this particular set of exchanges aren't available. And I'm just wondering how it is that this particular set of exchanges seem to be the only thing in the 21st century that isn't backed up somewhere.
Well, again, that's hyperbole, and you know it. But
why is it hyperbole?
Because you know it is, and come on,
seriously.
to say the only person, it's just ridiculous, and you know that. You know, Morgan McSweeney has done what is asked of him, will provide and is providing any material that is required. We are complying with the humble address. We are providing the information that is needed, has been asked, and will absolutely be provided. All ministers will also be complying with what is asked of us.
By the way, are you going to have to provide information on all this?
We've all been asked to provide any relevant material. I don't have any relevant material, but we are all being asked to provide.
This is unbelievable, right? the smug face on her as she tries to laugh it all off and say, oh, we're now entering conspiracy theory
This is her new tactic. This is the government's new tactic, because they're not answering questions which are valid, really, really sane questions. The new tactic is just make a joke of it.
Yeah.
How
you're
ridiculous.
You're just being ridiculous.
You know, you're basically saying that someone was arranged to come and mug, a man coming running up.
That's what we're saying.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Because the time frame has been so off. First of all, this happened a year before Mandelson. No, that's complete lies.
No, it didn't happen.
Weeks after.
Weeks after they decided everything was going to be looked at, right? And suddenly he's decided, it's very clear to me what's happened here. They've come up with a plan where they go, you say you had your phone stolen, right?
They
phone
didn't
the
think
police,
it through. Yeah.
Phone the police and make sure you make a record of that, and then it'll be written down. Then we can all say,
then we're sorted.
We all know what happened, as she just said. We all know what happened. He had his phone stolen because he was mugged. He wasn't mugged, right? His phone was nicked, maybe. He says it was nicked. We don't have any proof of that.
Doesn't say he's chief of staff, doesn't have security. No. I mean, he doesn't just call the police in the middle of Pimlico, in the middle of the evening. No. As the chief of staff.
He also doesn't change their report when they tell him it's the wrong address.
When it's the wrong address.
He's quite happy with that. So, and there's ridiculousness about and then at the end there, when she says, we're all complying with the request from the humble address, we are supplying any information that might be relevant. And then she goes, but I haven't got any information that's relevant. And you just go, do you really think we're that stupid? Is that how stupid you think we are? I mean, seriously.
But also, this is the thing. Messages aren't one way. They go to somebody. If they went to Mandelson, if they have in any way relate to Mandelson, they have gone to somebody.
Well, we found out last week.
Therefore, they are relevant to the police investigation. When Mandelson was arrested, where was his phone?
Yeah.
His phones would have been taken when he was arrested.
You say that, except apparently last week we found out that his personal phone hasn't even been examined yet by the investigators. So they haven't taken his personal phone.
So they didn't, they're not conducting that investigation thoroughly either.
He's now had a chance to erase everything, right? Because he's now had it for several weeks since he was arrested. The whole thing is an absolute shambles. I mean, this from a super chat from LTL. What a load of nonsense. They think we're stupid. I mean, it's embarrassing.
It really is embarrassing. And how much longer can Starmer go on not answering these really, really basic questions?
Yeah. It is absolutely ridiculous, completely and utterly mad. Make all MPs SE, what is that? No pay if they do a crap job. I think that's right. I don't think they should be given a pay rise. I don't think they should have performance-related pay, in my view. Because also, by the way, just in case you're wondering about the House of Lords, the House of Lords...
Well, okay,
if
inflation is soaring and things like that, why are they being given a pay rise?
Yeah.
You know, when the country is being so badly governed...
Yeah, exactly right. House of Lords, by the way, would also get a handout as well, taking their tax-free attendance allowance to £390 a day.
That is such a scandal.
Look, I don't mind people being paid for working. I don't mind them being paid for working, but why should it be tax-free, right, one? And why should they get it just for turning up?
Mike, you know they're not all of them working. They're not all debating all day long. Yeah. Many Lords are turning up, signing in, having lunch and leaving. And then they get 300 and something pounds. I think it's nearly £400 a day now. That is absolutely disgusting.
I know.
There are people out there working and not making that in a week. In a week of hard work.
Yeah. Or if you do make it in a week, you get half of it taken off you because you have to pay tax. And the absolute and utter gall of these people to cause the cost of living increase, right? And to then make us pay for it so that they don't have to suffer.
It's not their fault. It's Ukraine. It's Iran.
Well, now it'll be the Houthis' fault or something.
It's the Houthis' fault, and it's climate change.
Yeah. Oh, God, save us. Right, front page of the Times, number 10, Prime Minister...
Well, that's going to make things worse.
Fuel bosses as fears grow over shortages. Well, we talked a little bit about this, but what's he going to say to them exactly? I don't think they should be pushing up the prices. Well, 51% plus is tax from the government.
Exactly.
And somebody sent me a message earlier saying that the Australian Prime Minister has reduced fuel duty, I think, for the next... Did you see that one? I think for the next 3 months, they basically just reduced the cost of fuel. Yeah, he's halved fuel tax for 3 months.
And you made that really good point a few weeks ago that actually almost half, over half now of what people are paying is fuel duty and other government costs, not the actual price.
No, and also the fuel, the VAT is on top of the tax.
Yeah.
So you don't just pay VAT on the original supplied fuel, which is actually quite a lot cheaper than we buy it for. But you pay the tax, you pay the VAT on top of the other tax.
No, but far easier to ration it so that people can't, drive around and do their business and leave their homes.
Yeah. I mean, it is shocking, isn't it?
Katie
Absolutely
Hopkins,
awful.
I know, who's a bit controversial, has been saying this for a while. She's saying, you know, this is actually all part of the same narrative.
Yeah.
The whole kind of lockdown narrative is kind of keep people confined, basically, because they're much easier to manage if they can't really drive around.
Right.
You know, because a car is a kind of fundamental
And
freedom.
then we'll go back to the police, won't we? Sort of policing all the ordinary good citizens of the country who are not breaking the law. While on the front page of the Sun this morning, did you notice that little segue? Broken in Britain, which is a great headline.
Yeah.
Cops have given up on burglary. 92% of cases now remain unsolved. So if you've got a story for us, by all means, send it to us if you can. Do it on Twitter at IROMG. You can do it on the Facebook page as well, where we've got the Mike Graham Show, as well as the Mike Graham page. And also you can send us messages on Substack if you're on there as well. Police failed to solve a colossal 92% of burglaries in Britain last year. And in a third of the country, cops didn't crack one single case.
It's really...
What? Not one case.
No, but it's really serious, the fact that, you know, regular crime, everyday crime, with the police kind of focusing on cybercrime and policing social media and all of that. Genuinely, things like burglary, things like getting your phone nicked in the street, unless you're Morgan McSweeney.
Yeah.
You know, the police aren't really pursuing it at all.
Right. 393 files left closed every day. This is the outcome in 2025. It's a Sun investigation. It's a good one. 184,783 burglaries were investigated, right? Of that, 143,521 investigations complete, no suspect identified.
Exactly.
So that's not really much of an investigation, is it? We don't know who did it, and that's your lot. That's the end of the investigation. 27,483 unable to prosecute the suspect.
And what's the point of having, you know...
What are they doing?
CCTV and cameras everywhere on every single street and every single, you know...
I know, right?
If they're not pursuing this stuff.
I know. They said they were going to look at CCTV footage of McSweeney getting mugged, didn't they? But I don't know whether we'll ever see that.
Conveniently, maybe those cameras were turned off.
Yeah, 6,522 awaiting a court outcome, so that will take about 4 years. 5,372, the court result was unavailable. Right? 644 found a local resolution, don't know about that. 402, a suspect was charged as part of another case. 400 charges out of nearly 200,000 offences.
The thing is, when your police is failing with basic crime, when your transport system, I mean, how many temporary traffic lights and rail replacement services, right? When your trains are always running late, when your NHS doesn't work, when you can't... Yeah, but when your schools, again, I'm not going to start about schools, when the schools are failing, it's an indication of a country that is not functioning properly.
It's not fit for purpose, is it? That's the bottom line. I mean, that is the state of our country.
It really matters, though. I know we're laughing about it, but it matters.
Well, the front page of the Telegraph today, Labour to ration NHS referrals to hit targets, right? The NHS is to ration hospital referrals as Labour scrambles to meet its pledge to cut waiting lists. GPs have been ordered to consult on at least 1 in 4 referrals rather than sending them to hospital to reduce unnecessary appointments.
Do you see what's happening? It's really sinister.
So you can't get a GP's appointment. If you do get one, it's better if they don't send you to hospital.
Yeah. They're being told to limit, it's a bit like saying, you know, limit the amount of prescriptions you write, limit referrals.
Yeah.
That's actually really, really dark.
Yeah.
Because a doctor should be trusted, right? It's nothing to do with government targets.
Yeah.
A doctor, although most of them are about 12 years old,
Yeah.
when you see a doctor and they just spend their whole time staring at the screen, Googling whatever your symptom is, and you think, well, yeah, I just did that at home.
You can do that, yeah.
Why are you Googling that?
Right. And also, I mean, I've given up on the NHS. I don't go to see the doctor anymore. I can't remember the last time I went.
Well, you're able to go private, and that's fine. But lots of people aren't.
No, I don't mean that's... I'm not boasting about that. I'm just saying that I just haven't bothered doing it.
Yeah.
Because because I know, for example, if I go and sit in a waiting room, they won't see me. I have to ring up at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I happen to be on the air. Maybe we should do it one morning. Try and ring up and get a doctor's appointment live. What do you think, Pooch? Let's see. But you know, my local GPs are so out of touch. Every year they send me a text message asking me if I'd like to join the Giving Up Smoking programme. I haven't smoked since 2017.
Yeah.
That's probably the last time they saw me.
Yeah.
You know, so they think, and they get an incentive. They get money if they give me. So we're talking, 9 years later. That's their record keeping.
Yeah.
They think I've given up smoking. Well, they don't think I have, rather. And here's one that's really worrying as well. Have you seen this in the Times? 10 doctors have prescribed more than half of all the cannabis drugs since they were legally made available for medical use. So that's 800,000 medications handed out by 10 people.
Oh, I'll tell you what's worrying about that.
Work?
Well, there are lots of private prescriptions. I'll tell you what's worrying about that. The stuff they're handing out is stronger than street-level skunk.
Is it?
Which is strong.
Wow.
This isn't just like, oh, you know, a little bit of pain medication. This is strong stuff.
Yeah. That's ridiculous, though. But how can it be possible that only 10 doctors are behind all of that? I mean, is that some kind of cabal? I mean, do they all know each other? I mean,
I think it's a lot of private prescriptions.
It's raising concerns over whether patients are receiving the most suitable products and appropriate clinical oversight. Most patients using private cannabis clinics are being treated for psychiatric conditions such as depression and anxiety, but they're giving them skunk.
They're giving them very, very strong skunk, and that's my concern, is that stuff does kind of induce things like paranoia and anxiety. It really, really does.
Yeah. I mean, and again, everywhere you go in London, you smell it, don't you?
Oh, yeah, everywhere. It's completely, basically legal on the streets.
Yeah. I don't see the police ever arresting anybody or pulling anybody.
Never. And there's no kind of, you know, there's no concern about doing it in public. People aren't hiding it. People are in parks, hanging out on the streets, smoking it openly.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I walked past, I was coming home from something the other week, and there's a little sort of alleyway that I use. And there was 3 people just standing there, and they were all wearing high-vis vests, by the way, so they were presumably council workers or they're working on something. Yeah. And they were just standing smoking a joint, and they kind of looked at me as if to say, oh, because I was wearing a jacket and tie, they thought, oh, here comes somebody official. But they kind of gave me this slightly menacing look, like, you better not mess with us kind of thing. And I was like, morning. You know, because what am I going to say? You shouldn't be smoking that here?
Well, I have a, as you know, 5-year-old, and we were smoking, we weren't actually.
I was going to say,
we were cycling.
Weed, starting him early.
We were cycling through a cloud of, you know, marijuana haze the other day in the park, and I said very loudly to Ludo on the back, I said, and that, Ludo, is marijuana, and the guys just laughed at us.
Right.
I thought, well, it's better that he knows.
It's better that he knows. I used to drive back when I used to park near London Bridge and sometimes be like, how can I smell dope? And it turned out to be coming out of the car in front.
Yeah.
And the guy had the window open and there was this waft of sort of, you know, cannabis smoke.
So what are the police doing? Because bobbies are not on the beat.
I mean, yeah, you can say...
They're not doing the low level, like, they don't
burglary.
respond to shoplifting.
No.
Absolutely not. They don't really, not that interested in burglary.
No.
And they're not chasing drug dealers. So what are they actually doing? Are they still in offices looking at social media?
Social media, probably. Or in London, policing, you know, these ridiculous demonstrations.
Oh, the demos. They're doing the demos.
Yeah. Here you go. As an ex-police officer, I've always said you can't quantify how much crime is prevented by the sight of an officer on foot patrol. Yeah, but you do actually prevent it. But equally, as I said, even if you take the view that, you know, people smoking marijuana is more or less decriminalised, it's not decriminalised when you're driving. No. So if people are smoking it while they're driving, that's the equivalent of being drunk driving, isn't it?
Tiger Woods had a good weekend, didn't he?
Oh, my God.
Speaking of...
Have you ever known anyone to turn over so many cars?
Oh, my goodness. He turned over that car and his eyes didn't look great. That mugshot, he said... They said... The reason I mentioned that is because they said apparently it wasn't alcohol. So I wonder what they... He didn't look great. He looked quite tired.
Do you know, one of the things I think he suffers from is because he's had so many surgeries and had so much work done on himself, I think he takes quite a lot of quite strong drugs.
Okay.
You know, which probably doesn't help.
Well, it doesn't help.
You know, because even if you're not drinking, he's probably on Xanax or something all the time. Yeah. Which is not really something you should be driving on either. But there we are. Speaking of old stories, actually, even though this is old, I'd love for you to see it if you haven't seen it. This is... as a result of, you know, Reform doing this kind of, you know, tour of Britain.
Rally, yeah.
And last week they were in all sorts of different places, including Ipswich, including Sunderland, and including Leeds. And there was a picture taken of Nigel Farage going to Ipswich Town Football Club, you know, because he's, I wouldn't say necessarily a football fan. I don't know that he is or he supports a particular team, lives in Essex. However, Ipswich Town apparently was sorry that he turned up. Now, if you watch, this is the Ipswich Town chairman, I'll give you his name in a minute, apologising for the fact that Nigel Farage actually went to the football club. But if you watch it, you'd think he was apologising for some kind of massacre that had taken place. Have a look at this.
Aware that this has been a very difficult week for all of us. The staff are hurting, elements of the fan base are hurting, and so are elements of our local community. And that upsets me immensely. And for that, unreservedly, I want to apologise and say I'm sorry.
Can you understand that strength of feeling and the anger that supporters are feeling?
Yes, I understand that supporters and elements of the community are angry. I also understand that there are a number of mistruths out there on what's actually happened this week. And I also understand that we have lessons to learn because mistakes have been made which have caused harm and distress to parts of our local community. And as the chairman of the club, I take full responsibility for those mistakes. and full responsibility for making sure that those lessons are learned and learned quickly.
How do we do that? How do we learn those lessons?
I think a prime example is the board. Full board of directors are now reviewing the policy.
This guy's name is Mark Ashton, right? Apologising for hurt, any pain or distress caused by the incident, right? Which, as I said, sounds like somebody's gone on a rampage with a machine gun. And then he goes, lessons will be learned. And the worst thing is the journalist asking the questions, how will we learn those lessons? And it's like, what is wrong with these people?
I know. I mean, I would like counselling for having Keir Starmer as my Prime Minister. That's causing me hurt and distress every single day.
Well, do you know what was funny? There was a case where a couple of lefties were coming out saying, in fact, one of them was that guy who used to work for The Times. I can't remember his name. Very sort of, well thought of football writer, Henry Winter, who came out and said, football should never be used as a political football, blah, 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 politics should stay away. And then they showed a picture of Starmer at some football club with a football shirt on, and nobody said anything. No, that was fine.
And wasn't there a company recently who offered its staff counselling? Counsel?
Yeah, it was Leeds Council.
Leeds Council offering them counselling for,
the fact that... Yeah, they were on Plank of the Week for that.
Absolutely ridiculous. Can I thank Margaret and Lisa? I'm so sorry.
No, that's fine.
Because they sent this lovely card in, a lovely Easter card for me and Ludo to your show.
Isn't that nice?
Isn't that lovely? Margaret and Lisa from Birmingham.
Yeah, they sent some lovely stuff.
A little bicycle.
They sent Pooch in a nice card as well.
Thank you so much.
Have you got what's on your card?
There we go.
Let's have a look.
Oh, everybody wants to see
it's a
Pooch,
dog.
really.
Nice. You see, they're very thoughtful. They listen to all of that.
And they're proper cards as well.
From Margaret and Lisa. I think
they've really thought through what, because Pooch is all about the dogs. And
can we please have a text or an email?
I've got a bicycle filled with flowers.
Yeah, can we please have a text or an email, she said, especially for people like myself. No Twitter, no Facebook, thank you. Well, the ladies are Margaret and Lisa. Thank you very much indeed if you're watching. It's very kind of you to send not only... And some lovely ones. They sent me this one of Faye Dunaway last week, which was that famous picture of her after she won the Oscar. And it's very sweet. We really love getting cards from you. Thank you very much. It's very kind. I don't know where we would send a text or an email. I'm not sure. We'll see if we can find out. So we do a couple of super chats. Yeah, here's one from Mr. Gillespie. Agent Phillipson, gaslighter. McTwerp person was mugged, you gullible mug. Suck it up. Otherwise, I'll smear you as a far-right conspiracist. Ka-ching. I know, it feels a bit like that, doesn't it? Wire MPs to lie detectors while they're being interviewed, says LTL. Yeah, absolutely right.
Yeah, whatever happened to lie detector tests? They used to be all the rage, and we don't.
I think Jeremy Kyle ruined it for everybody because he came out and admitted that it was only 70% likely to be true. Or something.
I think so.
I don't know, something like that. But yeah, I mean, you don't need to hook them up to lie detector tests because they don't answer any questions.
Yeah, and you can see anyway.
You can see that they're lying because their lips are moving.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no need for a machine.
I was going to say it's the default is to lie or to not answer.
Absolutely no need for that. I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's crazy. Anyway, listen, we could talk all day, but I mean, there's a few more stories we'll get to over the course of the next couple of hours. But Emma, thank you very much indeed, as ever. Good to see you. Coming up, we've got Lee Lanallingham coming up. We've got Elon Levy, we've got Mark Littlewood and Widdecombe. Steve Baker, the former cabinet minister of the Tory party, is coming on as well, and Intel lady too. This, of course, is the Mike Graham Show, though. It's coming up to 7:33, and it's time for Edward Hughes with the news.
Good morning, I'm Edward Hughes with your news. Oh joy, another sparkling Monday in Britain. A car ploughs into pedestrians in Derby, blood on the pavement, and counter-terror police are assisting while keeping an open mind, because nothing says routine incident like involving the terror squad. Meanwhile, inflation's stubbornly stuck at 3%, but don't worry, the looming Iran war is about to send fuel and food prices skyrocketing, so just fill up as normal, says a minister. Brilliant plan. Keir Starmer's busy chatting with Trump about the Strait of Hormuz, offering British bases for strikes while insisting we're not getting dragged into a wider Middle East mess. Sure, mate, a man's shot dead near Euston Station by a bike-riding gunman. Tottenham's interim boss lasts a whopping 44 days before getting the boot, and millions might get compensation for missold car finance. Because apparently, the only thing working in this economy is the complaints process. In brighter news, experts say under fives should limit screen time to 1 hour a day. Good luck with that when the headlines are this depressing. Britain 2026. Same chaos, new excuses. Cheerio! Please remember to like and subscribe. Laters, Tigers.
Meltdown. No. Coming up, we're going to be speaking to our next guest, who is, of course, Lee Nallingham. He's got some very interesting statistics for us. He's the guy who puts in a lot of freedom of information requests into various different councils. We're going to be talking about council tax, which is interesting, and also some statistics on rape and other criminal activities. We've learnt this morning from The Sun that burglary now is more or less something that the police don't even bother investigating. 92% of burglaries not even investigated by the looks of things. But before we do any of that, it's time for my meltdown. So we told you earlier that it is now summertime officially. We told you that the cost of living has gone up quite significantly since the Labour government got into power in July of 2024. It seems like they've been in forever, doesn't it? The cost of petrol is now up to over £1.50 a litre in most places. The cost of diesel is approaching £2 a litre. In the place I was in this morning, it was about 181 and 182. What we found out this morning, thanks to the Daily Mail, is that basically benefit claimants and MPs will be getting a subsidy this very week because the cost of living is costing them so much more money. So if you're on benefits, you're going to get 6.2% pay rise, which is twice the rate of inflation. If you're an MP, you're going to get a cost of living handout to help you with your cost of living, £3,300 per MP. Now, as you know, MPs get paid already over £110,000, right? They are now in receipt of yet more money. But of course, the cost of living doesn't affect MPs because they charge everything to us. I remember I told you some time ago that Ed Davey, the head man at the Lib Dems, has got an office in London. Do you know how much we pay to help him run his office? £320,000 a year, okay? Cost of living's not really affecting him, is it? He's employing a load of people on our shilling. Also, his heating allowance gets paid for. Every MP's heating allowance gets paid for, not just in one home, but in their second home. And then, of course, they can claim for all manner of council tax payments. They can claim for all manner of travel expenses. They can claim for allowances for subsidised eating and drinking. They can claim that as well. They can claim for stationery. They can claim for pencils. They can claim for staples. They can claim for scissors. Everything that they need to buy for their work, they can claim. Now, if you're a small business owner, you'll know that you're not allowed to do that anymore. There are things that you can't claim because the tax man will come down on you like a ton of bricks. In addition, people in the House of Lords will get their tax-free attendance allowance increased to £390 a day. And in addition to that, of course, the two-child benefit cap gets lifted, which means that there'll be more money going from the taxpayer to those who don't necessarily deserve the money. That is the problem. They've got a headline that says, betrayal of the strivers. Well, we're all getting a bit sick of it, aren't we? How much more can you be squeezed before you actually have nothing left to give? You know? Council tax went up for most people. It's going up still even more for most people since the beginning of April, which is only a couple of days away. The tax burden is getting higher. The cost of living is going up. The cost of fuel is going up. Starmer's meeting the fuel chiefs today to try and keep the prices down. Well, here's a clue for you, Starmer. Just take the tax off it. And that way, we'll all be paying a lot less, you complete and utter buffoon. So quite frankly, the idea that those of us who actually work for a living and pay taxes are not getting a free handout in order so that the people who don't pay any tax can get a free handout seems to me to be completely and utterly insane. There's a fascinating piece of information which I found out about just yesterday because it was in the Sunday Times. And it is this, basically, that the number of people who are now in the Labour Party who have done a proper job is actually completely and utterly minimal. Out of 257 new Labour MPs elected in July 2024, 224 of them came from the charity, communications or lobbying area. Many of them were former political employees, and that's why we are in the state that we are in. Almost all of Labour's MPs have never had a proper job. They've almost all come out of local councils or charities or places where they were political lobbyists. And that's why we're being run by a complete and utter bunch of numpties. I'm sorry to say. That's my meltdown. Dear me, where to begin? Anyway, listen, we are here. It's the Mike Graham Show. It's coming up to 6:40. No, it isn't. 7:40, isn't it? The clocks went forward, you see. That's what you have to remember. But nothing else has changed. Lee Nalallingham is here with us. Lee, very good morning to you.
Oh, morning, Mike.
Welcome back. Good to see you. It's a bit confusing with the old time frame change, isn't it? But as I say, you wake up and you've maybe lost an hour, but nothing else has actually changed. We're all still fighting the good fight.
Tell me about it. Try telling that to my 5-year-old.
Yes.
She does not understand that the clocks have gone forward.
No. Well, my dog's the same, right? Because yesterday I had the same thing, and Pooch will know this, from when the dogs are used to eating. Like Ziggy is used to eating at 4 o'clock every day, right? So he starts to get a bit antsy. It's a great piece, by the way. If you're not on Substack, we filmed an Ask Mike yesterday and put it out. And Ziggy's sitting in the front, and because of the way that he's been trained, there's a couple of kind of treats being offered to him to keep him sitting still, and he's dribbling. He's just sitting there dribbling. It's very funny. But so at 4 o'clock he expects to be fed.
Yep.
So at about 3:30 he starts kind of just coming around and looking. Any chance? It's getting near 4.
That long look.
And then he starts to look worried in case you're not going to feed him at all. He's like, Is it not happening today? So, of course, when the clocks change, it starts happening at about 3:30. Or no, it starts an hour early, doesn't it? So it's about 2:30. Yes, yesterday I was there. About 2:30, he starts with the eyes, And I'm going, no, it's only 2:30, Ziggy. And he's like, no, not in my mind, it's not. In his mind, it's 3:30. Same as your toddler.
Absolutely.
So anyway, what you got for us today?
What have we got? I think carrying on your meltdown, to be honest, Mike.
Well, this is ridiculous, isn't it? Benefit claimants getting 6.2%, MPs getting nearly $3,500.
Yep.
What are we getting?
Well, it turns out, and this is so new, I haven't even finished compiling the numbers yet.
Yeah.
But I've got 120 Freedom of Information requests now.
Yeah.
Nationwide, 45% of people don't pay full council tax.
Wow. 45%, so practically half of them.
Practically half of the country are not paying full
Now, does that
tax.
also include people living on their own, though? Because
That
they get a
includes
25%.
people living in their own.
Yeah.
So I looked into the numbers, did
Yeah.
some digging. So if you take Birmingham City Council, for example, 43% of people are not paying full council tax.
Right.
So my initial assumption was that, well, surely 1 in 3 are living on their own. It's not that bad. It turns out 23.5% of people in Birmingham aren't living on their own and not paying full council tax.
Wow. And how are they getting away with that then?
Well, benefits claimants, essentially, those who aren't
I
striving.
mean, I'm assuming I'm right in thinking if you're on benefits of some type or another, you generally get your council tax paid for you.
Get it paid for you, and then you get various reductions due to income and so on as a result of it. So nationwide, which is 53% of the country, take more out of the system than they pay into it, which is just simply not sustainable.
Well, of course not.
And then everyone focuses on universal credit and all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But it turns out no one's looked at the actual council tax element of it as well.
Right.
And when you look at that, there's an additional 45%.
Because that's not really counted as a benefit, is it? Whereas
It's
it
not
should
counted.
be.
It should be.
Because if you're, we were just talking about this earlier, if you're unemployed, for example, you get your rent paid, you get your council tax paid, and then you get money on top of that.
You do.
So what they should count as far as your kind of the net income is concerned, they should count the rent and the council tax and the benefit to see what actually people are getting, because that's going to be a big number, isn't it?
And that's where you get to, I've seen somebody taking home the equivalent of 140 grand a year. Which again is just complete madness.
Right.
And the 45% is the national number.
Yeah.
If you get into places like Brent in London, Glasgow, or Manchester, you've got over 60% of people not paying full council tax.
Wow. And of course, in Glasgow now has become apparently the migrant sort of asylum seeking centre of Britain, hasn't it?
Yep. And when you overlay the data and look at it, and I'll release the full figures, I think over the weekend coming. But there's a clear divide as well between what you'd call traditional inner city kind of communities, where there's deprivation, there's not loads of single person households.
Yeah.
And they are among the lowest rates. So there's a clear kind of divide there. And again, it's just another way, a hidden way, that this whole benefits.
And where, for example, if so many people are not paying their council tax in full, who pays for that? I know it's going to be the taxpayer, but does it get delivered to the councils? by the central government? Do they have to claim it? How does that work?
My understanding, and this is part of why it's so new, I haven't finished yet, is that the councils essentially just absolve it themselves.
Right.
So the thing that tipped me off when I started looking into this is I saw a piece that said my council, Tower Hamlets, received over £200 million in council tax. And I was like, well, that's wrong, because I know for a fact it was like 100 million.
Yes.
Or did I just get my numbers wrong?
Right.
And I looked, it's like, no, only 100 was paid. So, well, how does that tally up? Well, it turns out the majority of people are having it paid for them.
Yeah. Shocking, isn't it? And then, of course, next week, Labour are going to abolish the two-child benefit cap, which will cost us £3.5 billion a year extra. Again, money that we don't have. I mean, in February, I think Rachel Reeves borrowed £14 billion or so, and 12 billion of that was repaying interest. So we're not even actually doing anything with the money. Now, according to this figure in the Mail, basically the new handout will mean extra benefits to almost 200,000 large families in which no one goes to work. 200,000 families.
That sounds about right. I think I saw some statistics from Reform when they looked into this. When they looked at just working families, which was their line when it came to abolishing the benefits cap. It was like a few thousand out of 500,000. So I fully believe that number when you consider the economically inactive.
So we've now become a country, effectively, which is an island of benefit-seeking people, who not only are people who are already born here, but people are now coming from overseas to live here to claim benefits.
And again, you
might as well start calling it Benefit Island or something.
I do not understand it. I do not understand how you can move to another country and be like, well, hey, I'm new here. I'm, hi, I'm Lee. Thursday, can you give me a house and some money, please? It's like, well, no. In the nicest possible way.
Unfortunately, they don't say no. They say yes. I mean, we haven't heard from Shabana Mahmood this week yet, but we keep hearing from her that she's going to clamp down on people coming here illegally. She's going to deport them before they get a chance to make an appeal. All rubbish, of course, because that's not going to happen, is it?
No, that's it. And look, as a country, we are extremely giving. If everybody was being well looked after, no one would bat an eyelid.
Right.
But when we've got veterans on the streets, people's nannies can't afford to heat their own homes, what are we doing?
And also ordinary people who are working, getting taxed more and more and more. And those of us who are not on any kind of benefit whatsoever are not likely to ever get on any kind of benefit whatsoever. But we're going to continue to pay for those who are, to make sure that they're better off. It just doesn't make any sense at all.
It makes no sense. And
but isn't that an interesting stat about the number of Labour MPs, though, who come from that background where they've never had to work in a business?
Completely believe it. And I tell you what I'd actually like to look into is some of the other parties as well, because the more I look into that element, you're just seeing it's just this group of people who now graduate from university and go and work for an MP. And just do back office stuff for an MP or so on, and then end up as the mayoral candidate somewhere or so on.
Or become a special advisor and then sort of work their way through councils. Well, Bridget Phillipson's a great example.
She is a perfect example.
Worked, her only job before she got into politics was running a women's refuge, started by her own mother, of which there are some interesting questions being asked, by the way.
I've seen that.
Which we won't get into here. But, she's a typical Labourite who's literally never done anything other than work in a particular sector where there was never any kind of pressure on financial responsibility.
Absolutely. And you look at Wes Streeton as well. So Wes Streeton tried to do a year in Big Four consulting, couldn't hack it, went to work for smaller, community-based organisations after that. Had never worked for a business essentially for more than about 200 people. Not managing 200 people, just working it. And now he's in charge of trying to lead a department of nearly 2 million people. Is it any surprise he's struggling?
Rachel Reeves, worked at the Bank of England. She can't remember how long she worked there for. And she can't remember what she did. And then she can't remember what she did when she worked for Halifax Bank of Scotland. But what we do know is it was nowhere near running the economy of a major Western European nation.
Exactly. And then somehow they're
it's quite frightening, isn't it?
Country.
It really is quite ridiculous. We've got another crime story on the front of the Sun today. They're talking about broken in Britain, where 92% of burglary cases in this country are now left unsolved. You've got some stats for us on a different type of offence.
I've got some more stats. I was digging into the Metropolitan Police stats for February. So we have now had 1,475 rapes in London reported in just 59 days.
Wow.
One every 58 minutes.
That's incredible.
Right. 59 days, over 1,400. Unfortunately, my Tower Hamlets, Lambeth and Southwark are leading the way. If you expand that to include all sexual offences, You're at over 4,000 in just 59 days.
And that's just what's reported.
That's just what's reported.
Yeah.
Roughly 1 in 6 is reported.
Right.
So you're potentially looking at 25,000 sexual offences in just 59 days.
Wow.
And they like to tell us that London is safer. Apparently it's safer than ever. I don't know who for. It's certainly not women and children. But
Well, yeah. Well, it's certainly not safer for people like Morgan McSweeney, who had his phone stolen. And as Bridget Phillipson said yesterday, unfortunately, these things do happen. We wish they didn't happen, and we're taking steps to stop them. But they're not taking steps to stop them.
They're not taking steps to stop them. And what's even more interesting is this whole London being safer thing. It turns out sexual offences are up 6% in the last 12 months.
Yeah.
So if it's going up, it can't be safer.
It can't be.
Rapes are up 8.8%.
Yeah. Well, almost every measure, wasn't it? When Sadiq Khan came out and said this a little while ago, that London statistics show, crime-wise, that things are improving, he was using only one statistic, which was the homicide statistic, because it happened that 6 fewer people got killed than the year before.
Yeah.
But every single other metric was up.
Pretty much. And that's the thing. Like I like to look at total crime. So look, I think we're all happy. There's less murder. Yay, good.
Yeah.
Right. But when he came to power, there were 750,000 reported crimes in that year.
Right.
Last year, there were over 900,000 reported crimes. So basic maths.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and also, I mean, you know, all these left-wing commentators say, oh, yeah, you know, the right are always trying to make out things are worse than they are. They're always catastrophising. Well, it's not true, actually, because you see people and you talk to people, if you live in London, as we do, and people are much more nervous about where they go, what they do, sorts of things they do at night, you know, how late they stay out, whether they would walk home. You know, all of those kinds of things affect how people feel and how they live. And, you know, it's not just perception, it's the truth.
It is, and I think perception plays a part in some of the observations. So was it Fraser Nelson who was all over the place saying it's definitely safer?
Yeah.
Well, it turns out Fraser lives in Richmond.
Yeah, of course.
Now, Richmond has the lowest rate of crime in London.
Yeah.
Just bottom of all the rankings.
Yeah.
If you doubled the rate of crime in Richmond, it still wouldn't be in the top half of crime for London.
Yeah.
So it is that safe. So no wonder he walks around going, oh yeah, this is all lovely. What are you talking about? There's nothing wrong here.
No, but he's also trying to attempt to use statistics, which of course loads of people try to use. I mean, there's one on the front page of the I newspaper today, which is typical kind of misleading piece of information. Let me see if I can find it for you. Oh yeah, it says here, this is exclusive polling suggesting that 45% of the British public would be happy to accept more Europeans in Britain in return for improved trade with the EU. Now, you know as well as I do, as a man that looks at statistics, you can make any kind of assumption that you want, depending on what question you ask people.
Absolutely.
You know, like we used to do it with climate change, you know, would you be willing to pay more in tax if you want to save the planet? And most people would go, well, yeah, of course, because I want to save the planet. Yeah. But, you know, if it doesn't save the planet, it's a different answer. Would you like to pay more in tax just because a government thinks that you should pretend to want to save the planet? They'd go, no, actually, no, I don't want to. So, you know, the idea that people are going, oh, yeah, let's get, because they're worried that the EU talks have hit some kind of deadlock.
Yep.
And so, you know, we now might need to allow the Europeans to send us more people so that they can contribute even less to the economy.
Even less to the economy.
And we can all pay more.
And I never understand why that whole under-30s immigration deal is explained like it benefits Brits. There's no Brit going to work in Bulgaria. Oh, there might be like 5 of them.
Yeah, right.
That are going to go work in Bulgaria as part of like an exchange program.
Yeah.
You know, and it suppresses wages further. It's just fundamentally a bad deal. But of course, if you frame the question as to would you take this if you were going to be a lot more successful, you know, of course you'd say yes.
Well, of course you're going to say yes, but that is exactly the point. But, you know, these are frightening statistics as well, these burglary stats, where, you know, they've got broken in Britain, and it basically says out of something like nearly 185,000 burglaries investigated in 2025, it looks as though the likely charging of suspects was around about 400.
That sounds about right. About right. I think when I looked at 2025 statistics, it was a little while ago now, I think there's a burglary every 10 minutes in London as well.
Yeah. Well, I know people who've had, I mean, we've done so much on this over the course of the last few years that, you know, one of my favourite stories was somebody who came home from holiday to find that their house had been burgled that night, it would seem. And they called the police at about 8 o'clock at night, and they had a call from the cops at 10:30, 2.5 hours later, to say, we've just closed your case. And they were like, well, what do you mean? You haven't been round to see anything, you haven't taken any fingerprints, you haven't come round, you haven't looked at what happened. And they said, yeah, we're not taking any further action. Here's a crime number if you want it.
Yep.
And a lot of people don't even bother now even reporting it. This is why it's so funny that Morgan McSweeney took the trouble to actually ring the police when he had his phone nicked, because most people don't bother. You claim it on the insurance. You don't even need a crime number in many cases because they just assume it's happened.
Yep.
And they just give you a new phone. You know.
Yep, that pretty much sums it up nicely. And I think that's, again, across the board in London, less than 10% of crime is actually solved.
Yes.
So, you know, what's it, 900,000 reported crimes, you're talking 90,000 at best. Like,
and yet Sadiq Khan might become a lord, apparently.
Apparently. It's, what do they call that? Failing upwards.
I mean, I suppose in some ways it might get him out of the way. You know, I'm not necessarily against it as long as he doesn't kind of, you know, start bothering me. I'd rather he was a Lord Khan than he was the Mayor of London.
Yeah,
you know
but
what I mean?
the thing is, I think it's so ideological now that even if he was replaced by another one of that lot, will anything change? It's just, I think they're all interchangeable. You just change the name of the person, but they just carry on with the same.
The worry now is that you'll end up with some kind of Green Party scenario going on. Because they're going to be, I'm told, I don't know whether you've heard this, that they are likely to be mounting quite a lot of candidates in the local elections, because there's no mayoral election in London in May, but there are a lot of London sort of council seats up for grabs, and the belief is that the Greens are going to do quite well.
I'd expect them to do quite well, especially in places like inner London, where they're going to basically use the Gorton and Denton playbook, right?
Yes.
They're going to play to the secular vote, and
Yeah, it's not going to be good. Lee, good to see you.
Always good.
Lee Nanallingham, who's got some fantastic clips at his disposal. Can people find you on Twitter and elsewhere?
Just Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. You know, just look for Lee Nanallingham.
And what are you working on at the moment?
What am I working on? So I am working on finalising that 45% of council tax story.
Yeah.
And then I have done a whole load of digging into a load of audit reports. So over the next 2 months, I'm going to be dropping a ton of stuff on what's really going on with things like the Ministry of Defence not being able to prove £6 billion worth of kit exists.
Well, I mean, if you could find any warships in your travels, then good luck to you. That would be good. Fantastic. Anyway, listen, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Good to have you here. We've got lots of super chats coming in as well. Keep those coming in. One here from Jane. I hate this government. Taxed up the wazoo. Net zero. Useless NHS and education. MPs' pays increased. Islam out of control, as is illegal immigration. Well, this is the problem. I mean, everything seems to be out of control. Voice for England says everyone is apparently getting handouts and benefits. Can I get funds to put me in Stasi's until 2029? Stasis? What is it? Stasis. What is that?
Like sleep.
Oh, okay. That's a word I've never heard. Stasis. No,
That's what they have in the sci-fi movies when they get put to sleep.
Oh, that's what it must be. Naturally, the power would then go out. Typical. Yeah, I know. It is ridiculous, isn't it? The whole world seems to be going completely and utterly mad. And talking of the NHS, there's a story this morning in the Telegraph saying that now doctors are being told not to refer people to the hospital because they want to hit their targets of bringing down waiting lists, which is quite extraordinary, isn't it? Absolutely, utterly unbelievable. Coming up, we're going to speak to Elon Levy, I think, aren't we? Yep. Is he here?
Yes, he is.
Let's talk to him. Elon, a very good morning to you, sir.
Hello, good morning, Mike.
Just when you thought it was safe to go back in the water, apparently there's another strait somewhere which is going to be attacked by the Houthis over the course of the next few days. I'll find the name for it. You may know it off the top of your head.
A Bab el-Mandeb Strait, the opening to the Red Sea. Yes, the Iranian regime has filled.
Yeah,
the Iranian regime has filled the Middle East with its proxy armies. Indeed, and the Houthis are threatening to blockade the Bab el-Mandeb Strait.
Right. And so, I mean, it's been a pretty torrid weekend, I suppose, one way or another. The Iranians still maintaining their control over the whole area. Trump seemingly sort of going between giving them more chances and listening to them, and then giving them more ultimatums and then listening to them. And it's all a bit, for us here anyway in the UK, I don't know what it's like for you there in Israel, but in the UK it feels very much like we're just in this big kind of mixing bowl and going round and round and round and round, and there's no resolving of it, really, it would seem, and nobody knows where it's going to end or how long it's going to take.
Well, you in Britain feel you're going round and round and round. We're going up and down and up and down, down and up and down the stairs after about 140 missile sirens in the last month. But we understand why the Iranian regime is firing at us.
Right.
And that is because the Israeli and American air forces are destroying the Iranian regime's ballistic missile program, its nuclear program, its support for its proxy armies, its navy that is mostly at the bottom of the sea, and its ability to wage war. Just yesterday, the Israeli Air Force conducted airstrikes in Tehran targeting missile manufacturing and weapon manufacturing facilities. Israel is making sure that the Iranian regime not only no longer has the weapons, but can no longer manufacture the weapons to threaten its neighbors. And that if the regime survives this war, it will survive significantly weakened and no longer able to fire missiles and drones at its neighbors, and indeed continuing blockading the Strait of Hormuz. So it's been a difficult month, but a month in which the Iranian regime is significantly weaker than it was just a month ago.
Right. But I guess the difficulty is for a lot of people who are analysing it here as well, is it possible to beat Iran? Yes, militarily, but is it possible to beat them completely? And that seems to be the difficult question, doesn't it? Because they're quite wily at using other methods of resistance, if you like. They're not necessarily able to stop attacks from Israel and America. However, conversations about putting boots on the ground seem to me to be not very well thought through. And also, what happens if the price of oil and the price of all kinds of different sorts of fuel and things that go through the Straits of Hormuz goes up and up and up and up?
The Iranian regime has decided to declare war on all global consumers in order to protect its nuclear weapons program and the ballistic missiles that it has been launching at Dubai airport at the entire Middle East. The Iranian regime is showing the whole world exactly what Israel and America were saying for years, that the Iranian regime is one of the world's top global threats. And this is why this war has to end, with the regime having zero ballistic missiles, no longer able to exercise aggression, or just imagine what it will do in 6 months, in a year, when it feels that it has more power. We're all feeling the cost of the Iranian regime declaring war on the global economy and driving oil prices up. But oil prices will go back down. And when they go back down, the Iranian regime will no longer be able to threaten its neighbors, fire ballistic missiles and drones in every direction at American troops, at civilians sitting in Dubai and Abu Dhabi. We saw how many British expats were desperate to leave. And that's really the critical point. Look at how dangerous the Iranian regime is now, and imagine how dangerous it would have been if we hadn't stopped it and it obtained nuclear weapons and quadrupled its ballistic missile arsenal. So the regime is making just one miscalculation after the next. And that's why the Gulf countries now, that didn't want this war to begin with, are begging the United States and Israel to finish the job. They don't want a ceasefire that just makes this go away, kicks the problem under the long grass, tries to make it someone else's problem. They want a comprehensive arrangement that deals with the Iranian regime's ballistic missiles, drones, nuclear program, ability to interrupt international shipping, because they've seen it's a monster and they don't want that monster to rise again.
But how does that look, though, and how is it achieved, if you like? Because that's the hard bit, isn't it? Stopping the regime from being able to do anything effectively means completely denuding it and taking all of its fangs away, and therefore either removing everybody who would do that and replacing them. And, all of those things are difficult, aren't they?
Yes, they're very difficult. And that's why Israeli pilots are doing 3 bombing rounds over Iran every day, and they're taking stimulants to keep them going. We're trying to finish this as quickly as we can. Just yesterday, the Israeli Air Force announced a very major sortie over the skies of Tehran to bomb weapon manufacturing sites. Israel wants to make sure that when this ends, the Iranian regime can no longer wage war, can no longer manufacture the weapons to do that. It's very difficult. It requires incredible coordination and synchronization. And American tankers are refueling Israeli planes over the skies of Tehran so they can keep going back and forth, because the Iranian regime built such a huge war machine that will take time to destroy. Ultimately, we hope the Iranian people will rise up, claim their freedom, and build a free Iran that, doesn't want death to America, death to Israel, death to England. But unless and until Iran is free, Israel and the United States have to make sure that it can no longer threaten its neighbors, even though, yes, this will take time and it's a very dangerous mission. Israel is doing the world an enormous service here at great personal risk and personal expense.
And what about the expense for Iran as well? Because obviously one of the reasons they're so powerful and so difficult to remove is because of all the money they're making from the oil business. So, I suppose paradoxically, they're making even more money now than they were.
Yeah, this cannot end with the Iranian regime enriching itself and pouring even more money into its proxy armies. Look, do you remember there was a deal, the Obama deal, to try to end to put caps on the Iran's nuclear program?
Yeah.
That deal put temporary restrictions on the Iranian nuclear program in exchange for releasing billions of dollars in sanctions relief that it poured into its ballistic missiles and it poured into its proxy armies. We saw exactly what the Iranian regime does with its spare cash, and it's not to improve the lives of its people. It's to build a terrorist war machine that can threaten the entire Middle East. And that's why one of the options President Trump will be considering, according to reports, is to try to possibly take over Karg Island, which is the island through which the Iranian regime exports 90% of its oil, in order to choke off the Iranian regime's ability to continue refinancing its war machine and to force it to accept some form of surrender.
Yeah. And so in terms of the short term that you can see, this goes on for at least another month, doesn't it?
This is likely to take at least a few more weeks, yes. No one wants a long war. The whole point of this is to end the forever war that the Iranian regime has been waging against us and the whole Middle East. Remember, Iran's strategy was to hide behind its proxy armies, Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, to say, it wasn't us, they're attacking you with the weapons that we gave them, but it's not us. We want to end that and to end that cycle of violence. But the Iranian regime built a big war machine. It has convinced itself that it's winning, I think, because its leaders are on the run and they're not getting full information from the battlefront about just how seriously they're getting thrashed. So they're making increasingly delusional demands. But they built a big war machine that will take some time to dismantle. And that's why the assessment is probably, it's going to be a few more weeks for us running in and out of the bomb shelters as the Iranian regime fires ballistic missiles with cluster munitions at our cities. But, you know, we didn't know we just have to be big boys and suck it up, because it's a small price to pay to save the world from a nuclear Iranian regime.
Elon Levy, thank you very much indeed. Thanks for talking to us.
You,
Elon Levy, the former spokesman for the Israeli government, now podcaster, of course, as well. Coming up, Mark Littlewood's here, and Widdecombe's going to be on the show as well. Steve Baker joins us, the former cabinet minister in the Tory government, long before the election of 2024. An Intel lady will give us a bit of Bridget Phillipson, I'm sure, before the end of the show as well. She, of course, is attending the live show on May the 6th at Shepherd's Bush Empire. Tickets are still available for that. We'll be talking about that. Ticketmaster, there's the poster. Lewis McLeod, Right Said Fred, Carol Decker's coming along as well. All sorts of other people, possibly Marilyn Hawes, if she ever sobers up. But we'll see. Lots more to do. Let's get some news, shall we, with Edward Hughes.
The Conservatives are now the party of high tax. On their watch, the tax burden is the highest in 70 years. I worked as an economist at the Bank of England before entering politics. I know what it takes to run a successful...
Good morning, I'm Edward Hughes with your news. Oh joy, another sparkling Monday in Britain. A car ploughs into pedestrians in Derby, blood on the pavement, and counter-terror police are assisting while keeping an open mind, because nothing says routine incident like involving the terror squad. Meanwhile, inflation's stubbornly stuck at 3%, but don't worry, the looming Iran war is about to send fuel and food prices skyrocketing, so just fill up as normal, says a minister. Brilliant plan. Keir Starmer's busy chatting with Trump about the Strait of Hormuz, offering British bases for strikes while insisting we're not getting dragged into a wider Middle East mess. Sure, mate, a man's shot dead near Euston Station by a bike-riding gunman. Tottenham's interim boss lasts a whopping 44 days before getting the boot, and millions might get compensation for missold car finance. Because apparently, the only thing working in this economy is the complaints process. In brighter news, experts say under 5s should limit screen time to 1 hour a day. Good luck with that when the headlines are this depressing. Britain 2026. Same chaos, new excuses. Cheerio! Please remember to like and subscribe. Laters Tigers.
Yeah, thank you, Edward. Hughes there with the news. Lots and lots to do between now and 9:30, of course. But I'm delighted to say we're now joined by Mark Littlewood from Popular Conservative. Mark, very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike. Always great
Good
to be with
see
you.
Obviously, we've played it already. We might give it a bit another outing in a bit, but you would have been amused to see the chairman of Ipswich Town.
Oh, my God.
Over the weekend, apologising for something that sounded like, if you were watching it, some kind of mass death event.
Yes,
as
you
if
would have
somebody had
thought.
turned up and machine gunned the entire, crowd watching
Well,
a
well,
game.
not just the wording, but the sobriety with which he put it forward. He looked like he was in a state of kind of clinical shock.
Oh, yeah.
That Nigel Farage had attended a public event.
Apologising for the pain that was caused.
So I want the board of Arsenal Football Club to apologise publicly every goddamn time Keir Starmer turns up to an Arsenal game.
Yes, I think that's a good idea. In fact, he should, if Arsenal, because I mean, all these lefties are going, well, football's not about politicising anything, and you shouldn't. So he should be banned, shouldn't he? If
Well,
he's
that's
the Prime
right,
Minister, he shouldn't be allowed to go.
Have I got this right? I think Nigel Farage and Reform were just using Ipswich Town Stadium for an event, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Which, I mean, it makes perfect sense that football clubs rent out their facilities because they lie fallow 99% of the time.
Exactly.
Right? You've got a football stadium, you're only using it once a week, once a fortnight.
Right.
So if you're an Ipswich Town fan, you didn't have to deal with Nigel Farage being at the match. Whereas if you're an Arsenal fan, you have to deal with Keir Starmer actually being there and the camera panning to him every time Arsenal score or concede. So what on earth is the problem?
I know.
And what lessons have been learned? I've got no clue whatsoever.
But it's the usual kind of complete and utter kind of hypocrisy, isn't it, of the left?
Yeah.
Because somebody pointed out, I think it was Henry Winter, pointed out that, politics and football should never mix, blah, blah, blah. And then somebody found a picture of Keir Starmer at some football club wearing a football kit, which wasn't Arsenal's, and it was during some political campaign. So, for some people, that's okay because he's not Nigel Farage.
Exactly. No, it is Ipswich Town's lessons to be learned is apparently they've learnt the lesson that they'll let anybody in apart from the leader of Reform UK.
Yes, exactly.
That's basically it.
And
as far as I'm aware, Nigel's not on any kind of football banned list.
Not as far as I know.
But he usually watches cricket, am I right?
And he's much more of a cricket man. I've seen him at Lord's, actually. And I was saying, because, funnily enough, Essex, and people will probably kill me for saying this, haven't really got, I mean, Southend United, obviously, but they haven't got a great wealth
Lean into
of...
West Ham, I suppose, as the biggest local team, or Charlton.
Yeah, Charlton. Well, is that Essex?
No, but they're sort of south-east end of London.
But what I'm saying is it's not a county particularly known for...
You got Southend United, who dropped out of the league.
I think that's it, isn't it?
God, is that it? That's a pretty shocking state of affairs.
Yeah, who, funnily enough, used to be...
Colchester.
Colchester United, I suppose. But I've got to say that I've got to mention this only because a couple of very funny ways, and this to me sums up the kind of the great humour of this country. Igor Tudor, when he was fired by Tottenham Hotspur, a couple of people, one of them was James Heal, said this: shortest reign by a Tudor since Lady Jane Grey. Which I think is actually pretty good.
Yeah, I also keen to point out Liz Truss beat him by 5 days.
Yes. Yeah, which is actually not bad going, is it? Now let's talk a little bit about the phone hacking scenario and the phone stealing scenario. We've got still very few papers actually going with much of it this morning, but Morgan McSweeney now under investigation, supposedly by CCTV footage of the incident itself. But I mean, some of the stuff that was said at the weekend was quite staggering. We've already played out Bridget Phillipson answering questions and basically accusing Trevor Phillips of being involved in some conspiracy theory.
Well,
because he asked her the question that everybody wants to know: why wasn't the phone backed up?
Yeah, quite. No, I think Bridget Phillipson would have thought Woodward and Bernstein exposing Watergate would have been mad conspiracy theorists.
Probably,
right? So there is a really interesting question to which I do not know the answer about the backing up of phones.
Right.
Is that I think there might be a rule, but Bridget Phillipson should damn well know it, that government phones are not backed up in the cloud because they're so worried about the Chinese government or whatever, them being able to find the information, right? But in that case, say so.
Say so, but they haven't said that.
They haven't said
because
that.
they're now sort of tried to change the narrative to say that, after he spoke to the police, he then spoke to Downing Street Security, who then wiped the phone.
Yeah.
Which you can do remotely, but that doesn't mean that you don't have anything in the cloud. But they're not answering the question that way.
Yes, exactly.
They're not saying that.
And then the other issue, which, I'm speculating here, but it seems to me reasonable speculation without being a conspiracy theorist, McSweeney's got 2 personal phones as well. Well, I mean, drug dealers only tend to have 2 phones. He has 3. Right.
He's got 3.
And do you remember way back in the day, Hillary Clinton getting in all that trouble for using personal email addresses for government business? So although McSweeney's being asked, perfectly reasonably, hand over any personal text messages or emails that pertain to the Mandelson case, I think there should also be a question of, and if they were from your personal account, you're going to have to explain why.
Yes.
Because this is official government business.
Exactly right.
You can't try and do this off radar, basically. Right. So each day that passes, more and more questions, fewer and fewer answers.
Well, we found out at the back end of last week that Peter Mandelson's personal phone hasn't even been acquired by the investigations team.
Well,
they
he's
haven't even
taken a
asked for it.
sledgehammer to it.
Well, he's either taken a sledgehammer to it, or he reported it stolen back in October, but nobody's found out yet because he hasn't been asked. Or it's at the bottom of the sea, as per the Rebecca Vardy case. You know, I dropped it off the ferry on the way to John O'Groats or something. But have a look at this. This is Kemi Badenoch on TV yesterday, being asked exactly why this is all being called a conspiracy.
You're now weaving conspiracies around two men who no longer occupy public office, Morgan McSweeney and Peter Mandelson.
What's the conspiracy I'm weaving, Trevor? Go on.
Apparently, it's fishy that he lost his phone.
Why is
By
that
the way,
a
your Shadow Home Secretary comes in here week after week and reminds me that crime in London is rampant, people get their phones snatched out of their hands all the time, and that the mayor is a terrible mayor because he's allowing that to happen. It happens to this particular official, and you suddenly decided it's fishy.
Well, why didn't he tell the police that he was the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff? That's
He doesn't have to.
It's a government phone. The Prime Minister's Chief of Staff...
Say
that's nonsense, Trevor. I'm not even accepting that. What if Iran had stolen that phone? What if Russia or China had stolen that phone? The Chief of Staff did not tell the police who he was. That is extremely fishy. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Trevor. I'm not accepting this at all. That is extremely fishy.
Some people might say that's good conduct from a senior civil servant who doesn't use his position to get special treatment from the police.
If I tell you this now, as a government minister, when I was a government minister, if my phone was stolen, I would tell the police exactly what was on that phone and why it was a security issue. For him not to have told the police or the security services, I'm afraid, is fishy. Let's get back to this is the man who advised. This is the man who advised the appointment of Peter Mandelson. Something we've now seen has been a huge cover-up, lots of lies. The Prime Minister saying he didn't know the extent of the relationship. Of course they're fishy.
Are you saying Morgan McSweeney is lying?
I don't know whether he's lying. I said the whole situation stinks. Why is it that when they knew we were going to be asking for documents and all the messages that he sent, his phone mysteriously disappeared and he didn't tell the police at the time who he was? That is extremely fishy. I stand by that. It is not a conspiracy theory. Questions need to be answered and he should come into Parliament and explain what happened.
Kemi Badenoch makes a perfectly good case there, saying basically, John says, ask the Chinese what was on McSweeney's phone, they'll know. Well, this is the thing. She makes the point that as a cabinet minister herself, if she had had her phone nicked, she would have told the police exactly why it was a problem because of what was on it. You know, she says the fact that he didn't identify himself as the Chief of Staff to the Prime Minister suggests that the phone call was perfunctory and he just wanted to register the fact that somebody had stolen his phone. And Bridget Phillipson, of course, on TV yesterday saying, we all know what happened. Well, no, we don't actually all know what happened. What we're told happened is that he reported his phone was stolen. That doesn't mean it happened.
Yes, a lot of it just doesn't seem to add up, does it?
No.
And if you look through the transcript of McSweeney's call to 999, there's lots of weird bits in it. There's a confusion about whether he's phoning from Westminster or Stepney. Okay, well, maybe that's not his mistake. But then he's also asked, so do you live in London? Oh, no, I sort of work in London during the week. I mean, that's a slightly weird thing for the Chief of Staff of the Prime Minister to say. Right. It's not like he does a little bit of freelancing down here. You know, runs a grocery stall at Camden Market or something. So that bit is really weird as well. But for me, the bit that really makes alarm bells ring in my mind is how casual was the response afterwards. Yeah. So the next day, he sort of goes into number 10 Downing Street. Oh, there's your replacement phone, you know. You would have thought whoever's head of security at number 10 would be all over this like a rash. Must be the biggest security breach they've seen in months, years.
As Kemi said, what if it was the Iranians that stole his phone, or the Russians, or the Chinese?
Who did it.
You know, they will know how to download all the stuff on it.
Correct.
Before he's reported it.
And you also just want to know, even if you can't recover it, even if they've already got the information, you want to know who's got it. Is it a random phone thief, or is it a foreign agent? And the casual nature with which they treated all of this, I mean, is either a level of typical government incompetence, but dialed up to 10, or deeply suspicious.
Yeah, I think deeply suspicious is where I'm going, because when you know how they operate, and I think we can now see how this government operates, they operate on the basis that if everything is done through a process, then they can defend themselves, even if the process isn't any good. Because that seems to be Starmer's defence on appointing Mandelson in the first place. He's probably followed the process. It turns out the process was inadequate. Well, that means that you shouldn't have followed the process, you complete maniac. But it also means that they think by saying he called the police, he did all the things that he was supposed to do, that covers it over and everybody should just go away and stop talking about it.
I can't believe this is the process, right? I mean, cubic centimetre by cubic centimetre, Morgan McSweeney's phone must be one of the most important security assets in the country.
You would think.
Right, it's not just the Mandelson
even just the numbers on it.
Yeah, just the numbers on it. I mean, it's not just the Mandelson stuff, everything else on it. I mean, you know, what's the process if some civil servant leaves a briefcase on a train, let's say, and they sort of phone up, oh, well, yeah, sorry, I've left the briefcase on the train. And only a few weeks later do they say, oh yeah, by the way, the nuclear codes are included in the briefcase. You know, the total lack of urgency.
And all the home addresses of every cabinet minister, for example.
Exactly. It is unbelievable that this wasn't seen by a good number of people. I mean, I would have thought you sent in a SWAT team to try and recover the phone and track down the bloke. I mean, and it's now, months later.
Knowing, for example,
knowing
for those of us who have had our phones stolen, knowing that you can track it and you can see exactly where it is. Now, if this is Morgan McSweeney, perhaps the police might get off their backsides and go, actually, maybe we'll go and get that back. Because there it is in a pub just off the Paddington High Street, you know, or something.
Yes,
but
exactly.
you know, for something of national security, you would think.
And you would have thought, look,
you might go and get that phone back.
Yeah, I agree. And you would have thought, wouldn't you? I mean, it's difficult when you're reading the transcripts. You can't pick up the intonation in people's voices. But I'm trying to put myself in his shoes. If I was the Chief of Staff to the Prime Minister and that had happened to me, I would try and phone 999 on another phone immediately. But I would also impress upon them who I was, without trying to sound too arrogant. I sort of, don't you know who I am? But you probably haven't heard of me, but I happen to be the Chief of Staff to the Prime Minister.
So there are some security implications.
So you would have thought that would get it up the list, but no, it's just a bloke who works in London occasionally.
Right, and who nobody's asked the question of is how he was able to phone the police to report his phone stolen. Oh, because he's got another phone.
Well, he's got two other phones.
He's got two other phones, and neither of which have yet been examined.
Correct.
Because I asked this question about 2 weeks ago. I said, well, all right, if he says that the phone that he had up until October of last year has disappeared, what about the phone he's had since then?
Correct.
And why are we not looking at that?
Yeah.
And what about his new government phone?
Yeah.
You know, because presumably he had one of those as well. Or has he given that back? I don't know.
But as you're right, Mike, it's also process obsessed.
Yeah.
Whereas what you've got to do is to hoover up all the information. Some sensible investigators then's got to cherry pick the important stuff, find the needles in the haystack, and hand that over to the Intelligence Committee. This should take a few days.
I know.
Why the hell is it taking months?
I know, it's extraordinary.
It's worse than getting a GP's appointment.
Well, let's talk about that, because that's the front page of the Telegraph today, saying that, if you do happen to be lucky enough to get a GP appointment, what you won't get is a referral to a hospital, because apparently that's bad for the statistics. So they don't want you going to hospital, because then you'll be on another waiting list.
Yes, that's right.
It's madness, isn't it?
Talk about confecting the statistics. In order to get the waiting list down, we're going to pretend that there are fewer people waiting.
Yeah,
right? Okay, fine. Yeah,
great,
right.
brilliant.
Absolutely unbelievable. I mean, this is no way to run any kind of modern healthcare system. Completely absurd. So, if I got this right, GPs are going to be asked in 1 in 4 cases in which they would have referred somebody to hospital not to.
Yes.
So they're looking at 4 cases, and let's just say their genuine medical assessment is all 4 of these people need hospital treatment. They are now going to have to work out which one is the least serious of those 4, and just say, well, you're just going to have to walk it off.
I can reveal exclusively to you, they've got a system for that, because the government have told them exactly how to do that. Do you want to know how they're going to do it? Then you go, eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
There you go.
Right?
Well, that's following the process.
It's always the guy at the end. Sorry, mate. We weren't able to get you.
The process.
And all those people who then get referred will also then be waiting. They won't be seen by anyone. They'll just be referred.
Well, I say, you pulled off heroics if you managed to get to see a GP in the first place, haven't you? There's something pretty badly wrong with you. I was listening to you earlier, Mike, so you just don't bother anymore.
No.
Which I've got to give a shout out to a rival political party here, the official monster raving loony party.
Oh, yes.
Did you see their brilliant policy on immigration?
No.
It was to replace every border force employee, the whole lot of them, with GP receptionists. That way absolutely nobody would ever get into the country.
That is actually not bad.
A smart plan, that
Very
one.
smart. Speaking of alternative political parties, you might have seen at the weekend the ludicrous Together Alliance march,
my God, yeah.
which apparently had 500,000 people on it, even though the police said, no, it was more like about 50,000. Yeah. So they've obviously increased their sort of abilities by a factor of 100.
That's what inflation will be like.
It will be, yeah. We've seen, I don't know, should we play it again, Pooch, the dancing video? This is Zach Polanski, and Hannah the fake plumber, and some characters dressed up as, I don't know, it looks like more from the gay pride parade in Old Compton Street. Dancing around. I mean, I'm sure they love this in Palestine, by the way.
Yes. It didn't seem that they fully represented the Islamic wing of the Green Party on stage.
I didn't see anybody up. I didn't see anyone up there from the Free Palestine crowd. But have a look at this. This is ridiculous.
Again. Who is here for love, unity, solidarity? And who is here for DJ, Cortez and Dee?
And we've got MC Zaki P. Make some noise! Oggy, oggy, oggy! Oggy, oggy, oggy!
I mean, I don't mind people. I don't really be sitting here like some old fuddy-duddy going, you know, that's ridiculous, isn't it, outrageous. I mean, have as much fun as you like, I don't mind. But, you know, when you've got a newly elected MP shouting, oggy, 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 oi, 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 which I always thought was a Welsh thing, to be honest. Is that what it stands for now, the Green Party? They're basically going to dance around like they're in some kind of trance club.
Yeah.
Right. Their policy is more and more anti-Semitic, it seems to me, as they go down the road. And everything, but worryingly, and I say this because I think it could happen, they're supposedly going to do quite well in the London elections, local elections.
Yes, so Gavin, look, I can't even begin to explain this sort of behaviour, Mike. I've only got one theory, which is that they are going to, particularly in London, pitch very heavily for the Lib Dem vote.
Yeah.
And their strategy is therefore to make even greater arses of themselves than Ed Davey in these sort of stunts. I mean, it's absolutely madness. But look, what will happen to them is the actual policy platform and their lunacy will get more and more exposed if they retain this present level of momentum, right? So, although this is, you know, everybody's pointing out how ridiculous Polanski and what's her name, Spencer,
Hannah
who's on the stage there. But they couldn't even organise their online spring conference this weekend, right? So this was supposed to be when they were going to make these big decisions like, is Zionism racist? And all this sort of pretty vile stuff, frankly. But they couldn't even get the Zoom call to work. No. So the whole thing had to be abandoned. I mean,
well, also,
these people can't run a Zoom call. How on earth can they run anything in politics?
I mean, Pooch there's producing it. I mean, they also, a very interesting point about some of the views inside of the party. There's a guy called Topi Olawoyin, apparently shared a series of social media messages claiming the arson attack in Golders Green, North London, was done by a fellow Jew, so it was a false flag. And Zia Yusuf was on with Laura Kunsberg, actually, on the Sunday morning show yesterday, and he was accused by her of sort of having this rogue party where loads of people fail the vetting process because they're all mad right-wingers. And he said, quite rightly, he said, look, we've vetted 8,000 people in the last 2 years. Yes, a handful of them are going to be people that we don't want, but that's not a particularly surprising statistic. However, he said, what you don't do is ever pick up on any other parties. Have a look at this.
Yes, of course, it's reasonable to hold reform to account. But what consistently happens is the BBC pounces on every single reform mishap and gives it vastly disproportionate coverage in your news cycles and completely ignores the far more voluminous misdemeanours and, frankly, egregious things that people from other parties say. Let me give you a real example.
Proportionately, Zia Yusuf, proportionately reform has lost more councillors over this kind of thing happening than the other political parties.
That is actually incorrect. That's actually incorrect, right? And I want to make an important point, because it was just a couple of days ago that Green Party activists and candidates said that made a series of horrible anti-Semitic comments, including describing Jews, and I quote, I hesitate to quote, but I will do it, calling them abominations on humanity. And they also claimed that the attacks, the arson attacks on the Jewish charity ambulance were a, quote, false flag. A Green Party council candidate made that same claim. The BBC has not even reported on that, Laura, and I think that's unbecoming of the BBC.
Zia Yusuf, we must end it there, but thank you very much indeed for coming into this studio.
Yeah, we must end it there when you start having to go at the BBC for being biased. Did Diane Abbott count the protesters, says Mr. Cumbria. She did, 10 times over. Get Kim Jong-un on, what can only be seen as a first for the Mike Graham show. Well, I've got more chance of getting Kim Jong-un on than the Labour cabinet.
Yeah, well, there you go. Yeah, they're a bit more open.
The
North Korean Workers' Party, yeah.
Yeah, they are. They don't mind a bit of criticism.
The really good point Zia Yusuf makes. Also, I've got no doubt in Reform UK, if they saw members or activists making comments like that in a kind of informal Reform WhatsApp group, they'd be kicked out of the party.
Gone,
It might be that you don't come across it until it's too late, but you would be kicked straight out of the party. But I'm rather with... who was it? Oh, the comedian Leo Kearse. It was brilliant the other day. He said Adolf Hitler was a failed art student, a vegan, and blamed every ill in the world on Jews and rich people. If he was in Britain today, he'd be a leading member of the Green Party.
It's true. Yeah. It is absolutely true. And speaking of sort of minority parties, here's another one for you. This is old Zara Sultana at the weekend, doing what I would have thought could be described, if you were being generous, as a bit of an incitement.
The death threats, I've had the emails telling me that I do not belong here. But I said it in Whitehall and I will say it again. When the fascists turn up, we turn up and we bring our communities with us. Every trade union, every mosque, every church, every neighbour. Because look around you. We are the majority. This country belongs to us. So yes, we will defeat them at the ballot box, but when necessary, we fight them in the streets as well. Whose streets? Our streets. Whose streets? Our streets. The choice is clear. It is socialism or barbarism, and we must choose socialism. And I will wrap up with one of my favourite quotes from Aaron Dutty-Roy, who writes, "Another world is not only possible, she is on her way. On a quiet day, I can hear her breathing solidarity."
Oh dear. Your party, Zara Sultana, I mean, she's saying we're going to fight them in the streets. That sounds quite like an incitement to violence to me.
It does, doesn't it? I mean, and if she's claiming our trade unions, our churches, our mosques, we're the majority, well, why not just fight them at the ballot box?
Well, indeed.
But I think your party's at 1% or less in the polls, isn't it?
She didn't mention synagogues, did she?
No. Funny that.
Apparently they're not on the same side.
They're not part of the...
No.
But you know, they always went... Your party and this lot always went round complaining about the 1%. Right. Ironically enough, they are now at 1% in the opinion polls.
Yeah, exactly.
They are literally the 1%.
Well, Jeremy Corbyn spent most of the month in Cuba.
Is that right?
You know, he went over to Cuba with Richard Bergen, taking food parcels.
Did you see that Cuba has finally hit its carbon net zero target?
Oh, has it?
Yeah, but like all the lights are out. Nobody can afford to drive
apparently
a car.
they're being, according to Jeremy Corbyn and Richard Bergen, they're being strangled by the American administration. They're not being allowed to have.
Well,
any
apparently
food.
that's the only way you can get to carbon net zero. Then, so you'd expect Zara Sultana and Hannah,
absolutely right,
and Zach Balansky to be all in favour of being
but
strangled by Americans.
You would think, wouldn't you, that actually, you know, given what's going on in Europe and what's going on right now at home here in the UK, that Corbyn might actually want to be here to take part in some conversations about, you know, how to get Britain out of the mess that it's in. Because this morning, I guess we should talk about the two big stories on the front: the betrayal of the strivers. Benefit claimants getting a 6.2% pay rise. MPs getting £3,300 cost of living handout. Meanwhile, Keir Starmer today is going to meet fuel bosses because he's worried about shortages. And we're already hearing conversations being had around, should we be rationing petrol? Should we be rationing people's ability to drive? I mean, there's some very worrying things being said.
Yeah, we've got everything completely the wrong way around, haven't we, in the way that we set up incentives in the economy.
Yeah.
And I've always said this, folk are incredibly good at responding to incentives, even relatively small changes. So if you make it just slightly easier to not work and sit on your sofa, and slightly harder to work because taxes are going up, you will find a lot of people ducking out of the labour market and sitting on their sofa. So, I mean, I heard a terrible story the other day, really. Well, it's half terrible, half heartwarming from my dad, who met a mate of his, and this mate has a daughter who has cerebral palsy, right? So, you know, genuine problems in terms of entering the workforce. They've managed to find her a job, but in consequence of taking it, she will be worse off. Right. They're sticking with it because they think that's kind of good for her mental health and all of the rest of it. But what sort of world do we live in if that's the case? So yeah, the strivers are getting fleeced time after time after time after time. And on fuel and everything, I mean, look, I understand fuel is expensive. I mean, in part because of our carbon net zero suicide, but we've got to make sure we get fuel to the people who are working. So if you're going to work every day, those are the people who've got to need a break on fuel. Not just people who are at home struggling to pay the bills, right? So we've got to completely retilt the economy such that the incentives, the breaks, are all really now start to give themselves in favour of those who want to go and work and be productive. That's what will encourage a productive economy. At the moment, everything tilts to subsidising unproductivity. And if you pay people to not work, guess what? They won't. They
won't work. And Lee Lanallingham was in here earlier, and he does a lot of FOI requests. And one of the things he's discovered is the huge numbers of people in this country who do not pay a full council tax quotient, whether it be it's paid for by a benefits payment, or they get a reduction because of low income, or they get a reduction, I mean, a smaller one actually, a reduction for living alone. It turns out that what's equally galling, I think, for a lot of people this morning, is that the government, who caused the cost of living to go up, are now getting 3,300 quid to help them pay for the cost of living increase that they caused, including people like Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves get it.
Yes, that's right, isn't it? I mean, look, there's debate as old as the hills, isn't there, about how we should remunerate our MPs. But I wonder whether they should be geared into some algorithm and incentive about the performance of the country.
Oh, I think so.
So, if economic growth's really high, we're clipping along at 5% a year economic growth and the national debt's coming down, well, that might be the environment in which you give your legislators a pay rise and a bonus. If we're going bust and the economy's flatlining, not quite sure why those in charge of the rules would get a handout, right? It might also focus their minds a bit. If their salary was connected to the economic growth rate, it wouldn't be an easy thing to do, but just as a thought experiment, maybe they really would make growth their top priority rather than just claiming it is.
Yes, although another statistic which showed that something like all but 40, I think, of the 200 and odd members of Parliament from the Labour Party have never worked in a job which involved the private sector. They've all come from charities or councils, lobbying groups, all sorts of places where there is no reason or no kind of drive to make money.
I put in a chat earlier, which I saw Pooch put up. Here is a stat to conjure with. More Labour MPs have worked for Save the Children than have worked in financial services.
Wow.
Right? Financial services accounts for about, 10% of our entire economy. Nothing against Save the Children. Might do some good stuff. It's hardly 10% of the economy, right? So that shows the complete tilt away from reality. Look, I'm not actually in favour of kind of quotas for things, so I don't think just because financial services are 10% of the economy, you must have 10% of your MPs from there. But you would want some sort of balance, right? A mixture of people who've worked in the public sector as teachers, or have worked in financial services, or have a background in charity, or have set up their own business.
And some of them have come from trade unions, but inevitably they won't have actually really worked in the trade union business. They would have been officers of the trade union.
Well, that's a big problem now,
which is also a big
the trade union movement used to be, a genuine gathering of workers in which some of the workers would then go and become the officers. But it's now a career in itself. So you can now be, you know, a trade union for whatever, the Boilermakers Union, without ever having worked in the Boilermakers industry at all.
Exactly.
You are effectively a lobbyist, not a representative of that trade.
Right.
I think that's one of the reasons the trade union movement has degraded so badly.
And it's a route into political, sort of professionalism. But before we let you go, because Anne Widdecombe's coming up in a minute, I want to show you that the entrepreneurs are not dead in this country, because we've got a video of somebody making use of the new high-priced fuel. Pooch, I think you'll know which video I'm talking about. Have a look at this.
This is just selfish. Just look at her. Just absolute desperation. I mean, we're not going to run out of fuel, love. Oh my God. Oh, so now she's going to go and pay. The stupid woman's just left the fuel.
I mean, I had to be convinced that wasn't AI at first, but apparently it's not. It's a woman literally filling up plastic carrier bags with petrol, putting them in the back of her car, and then, I mean, I'm not sure I would have clicked the ignition button to lock the car, just in case it just went kaboom. You know, it's literally driving around in a bomb.
Is the idea that she's stockpiling?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, right. I thought it was going to give a whole new meaning to car boot sale. But she goes down, opens the back, buy a cup
Fancy
of
a bag of petrol.
petrol.
I mean, you wouldn't be surprised. But I couldn't even believe you could do that.
But also, who on the station forecourt isn't... why isn't somebody intervening?
I know.
I mean, okay, I don't know what time of day, but if you see somebody pouring petrol, I would have thought somebody should have hit a button or gone and asked her what the hell she's up to.
I mean, if you're not putting it into a proper, petrol can, surely you shouldn't just be able to put it into anything you like. It's like a sock.
I mean, I was a bit surprised she didn't go into the station forecourt and then buy, 20,000 rolls of toilet paper as well, right? No, it's crazy. The stockpiling stuff is crazy in that.
You see that story about the Kit Kats being stolen? I think in Poland.
Right.
And a whole lorry load of Kit Kats has been nicked.
But they're not an obviously high-value good, or are they?
Apparently, maybe they are in Poland.
Right, could be.
Kit Kat had to put out a sort of clarification to say that, the supply would not be interrupted and that they were happy that...
Have they phoned the Westminster Police yet about
probably,
it to sort of say...
Probably.
Lost a lorry of Kit Kats.
Yeah, I've lost a lorry load of Kit Kats, but don't worry, I've got some more.
Got two personal supplies as well.
Exactly right. Absolutely incredible. Great to see you, Mark.
Great to see you,
Thank you
Mike.
very much indeed. Mark Littlewood there, as sensible as ever from Property Conservatism. Coming up, we're going to speak to Anne Widdecombe. But first, let's get some news with Edward Hughes.
Good morning. I'm Edward Hughes with your news. Oh joy! Another sparkling Monday in Britain. A car ploughs into pedestrians in Derby, blood on the pavement, and counter-terror police are assisting while keeping an open mind. Because nothing says routine incident like involving the terror squad. Meanwhile, inflation's stubbornly stuck at 3%. But don't worry, the looming Iran war is about to send fuel and food prices skyrocketing. So just fill up as normal, says a minister. Brilliant plan. Keir Starmer's busy chatting with Trump about the Strait of Hormuz, offering British bases for strikes while insisting we're not getting dragged into a wider Middle East mess. Sure, mate. A man's shot dead near Euston Station by a bike-riding gunman. Tottenham's interim boss lasts a whopping 44 days before getting the boot, and millions might get compensation for missold car finance. Because apparently, the only thing working in this economy is the complaints process. In brighter news, experts say under 5s should limit screen time to 1 hour a day. Good luck with that when the headlines are this depressing. Britain 2026. Same chaos, new excuses. Cheerio! Please remember to like and subscribe. Laters Tigers.
Now, only two sorts of people oppose free speech, and they are at opposite ends of the scale. Snowflakes and totalitarians. I am offended, upset, insulted at least 30 times a day. Tough. It is not necessary to flash your knickers to do a decent ballroom dance. Free speech is for all, not for the privileged few. Nobody has the right to live their lives being protected from offence or from insult or from hurt feelings. And if you really can't take it, become a hermit.
the all-powerful Anne Widdecombe there. We're going to speak to her in a moment. But a quick poll for you, because the front page of The Sun has got broken in Britain today. Cops have given up on burglary. 92% of the cases are left unsolved. So we're asking you the question this morning, did the police still deter crime in the UK? Yes, they're doing their best. No, criminals don't fear them. 3, the courts are letting them down. Or they've just got a lack of resources. I'm afraid to say that most of you, 80% of you in fact, think that criminals don't actually fear them, and I think that's right. Criminals don't fear them because the chances of them getting caught are very, very narrow, and also if they are caught, the chances of them getting convicted are even narrower still. You know, as you can see from the figures they've got, something like 185,000 burglaries investigated in 2025, only about 402 ended up with a suspect being charged as part of another case. 143,500 investigations were completed with no suspect identified. I mean, you just do wonder what on earth the police are actually up to. Anne Widdecombe's here with us, a former a former Home Office Minister, I should say. I mean, the police seem to have lost the plot, Anne, altogether. These figures would suggest that not only are they not finding suspects in many cases, but they're certainly not bringing many convictions through the court system.
Yes, and that's been the case for a very long time. I mean, there are all manner of reasons for it. Political correctness hasn't helped. It's only fairly recently that police have stopped investigating what were called non-crime hate incidents. And now you've got to think about that. They were investigating non-crimes while at the same time failing to solve actual crime. That's been a part of it. The sheer quality, and this goes for Parliament, the civil service, and just about everything these days, but the sheer quality of your average policeman has declined as well, and there's far too much bureaucracy. Far too much bureaucracy. It can take hours to process a prisoner through custody. So there are numerous reasons for it, but I think that when this sort of thing happens, you look in one place and in one place only, and that's to the leadership. And, you know, what your chief constable thinks and what his priorities are will probably determine whether you're serving the public or serving a rule book.
Indeed. And there is this plan afoot, isn't there, from the Labour government to sort of reduce the number of constabularies and to sort of, you know, somehow melt down the management. I don't know quite why. They haven't really explained why that would make any difference. What do you think of that?
Well, the only thing that's going to make any difference at all is if you actually recruit more police officers, if they do not spend their time in the station or on bureaucratic tasks, but actually out on the streets. If more of them are actually out there on foot and interacting with the community, so you can get information from the community if you're there available and visible. Until that sort of policing is reintroduced, and I say reintroduced, not introduced, you know, it's what we used to take for granted. Until that sort of policing is reintroduced, doesn't matter what else you do.
No, exactly right. Let's look at a couple of other things that are going on the front pages. Obviously, the big story at the moment is the situation in the Middle East, the fact that fuel prices are completely and utterly out of control. I think this morning I saw diesel for something like 180 a litre, 150 plus now for petrol. Starmer is going to see various heads of fuel companies today, supposedly, to try and evade and avoid having to ration fuel. How have we got to the point where we're paying so much for it? And I know that obviously there are, you know, circumstances beyond our control, but wouldn't it be sensible for the government to reduce the tax a little bit on it?
Well, we've arrived where we are because we don't use our own oil. I mean, that's worth pointing out. We've got a North Sea full of it, and we're not using it. And because of the crazy drive to net zero, we've been ignoring our own assets. So, you know, when you ask why, that's one of the reasons. The second reason, obviously, is what's happening in the Straits of Hormuz, and that is not within Keir Starmer's control. But the idea that if you meet the heads of the energy companies, you're somehow going to produce an answer while that is going on is, I think, rather facile. I mean, let's face it. You know, the petrol companies don't want to run out at the pumps. The petrol companies don't want to price people out of buying their products. It's not in their interest. It's their natural response to the situation that's developing in the Middle East.
Yeah, exactly right. But, you know, Why wouldn't, I mean, obviously there's a good reason why they wouldn't want to reduce the fuel duty or at least the VAT or something. But I mean, Kemi Badenoch's now saying she would take the VAT off. The Reform Party have said the same. Surely they must have some ability to reduce the price that way.
Yes, well, I'm glad Kemi Badenoch has finally caught up with what the Reform Party has been saying for a long time. That needs pointing out. It's not her bright idea. She's catching up with us. And that seems to me just such an obvious step to take. I think the problem is this government is terrified of reducing any sort of tax. Be it the amount of duty that is put on top of the actual price of fuel, whatever it may be, they are terrified of reducing it because all they are concerned about, all they have been concerned about since they came in, is the maintenance of the welfare budget.
Well, they have, but unfortunately, not only the maintenance of it, but the increasing of it. I mean, the front page of the Daily Mail today says benefit claimants are going to get a 6.2% pay rise this week, which has really rather upset the cat amongst the pigeons for those of us who are not on benefits, who are paying for all of it. In addition to which, MPs are apparently going to get a £3,300 cost of living handout because, you know, having caused the cost of living increase to go up, they get to benefit from it.
Yes, and that in the current situation, I think if I were an MP, I'd say, look, I'll just pause that. I won't take that yet.
Yeah.
Until the situation is more stable. And people do get cost of living rises for the simple reason that the cost of living goes up. But I think your previous guest was absolutely right. What Britain should be focusing on at the moment is people getting to work. And people who are getting to work do actually need to fill up at the pumps. That's what they need to do. And if they can't get to work and they can't work from home, they will be stuck. So they should actually be the priority. But this country has not, for decades now, put workers right at the top of the agenda. You saw it during COVID. Everybody had to stay in, even if going out would have kept the economy going and saved us from the vast bills that the government incurred. So putting workers first, which is what Reform has been saying for a long time. If you remember, Nigel Farage talks about alarm clock Britain.
Yes.
Those who get up to go to work. And they're the people that we must put first.
They should. Now, talking of alarm clock Britain, there's not much of that going on at the BBC. The BBC are in the Mail today. Apparently, they've decided to shrink their royal events team. It was apparently a number of about 6 of them, and they're only going to now have one person planning the various royal occasions and veterans remembrance events and that kind of thing, which they used to do so very, very well. But what they're not reducing, of course, is the number of people they'll send to Glastonbury. They've got a new Director General, a guy who has come in from Google, but who used to work at Trinity Mirror, my old employer, one of them anyway. The BBC are going to have a rough year, I think, don't you?
Yes, I do. And I mean, as far as Trinity Mirror goes, they, of course, took over the Express with Reach. And it wasn't a happy experience. But for the BBC, who always does royal occasions right down to the last tea, brilliant at it. People tune into it. People are expecting the best. They were horrified, if you remember, in 2012 when they got a dumbed-down version of the Diamond Jubilee River pageant. They got a really dumbed-down version. People protested, and the BBC learnt from that. Now, if they're going to pare right down their royal events team, then they're going to lose. They're actually going to lose one of the greatest sources of kudos, real kudos, that they've got. So it's a phenomenally stupid decision.
It really is. And there's a piece by Robert Hardman, who's obviously a royal expert. He says, why on earth do they want to scrap the Rolls-Royce of live TV? Because they do it very well. But you know, Pooch knows a thing or two about production of Glastonbury, and no expense spared is what happens down there. I mean, it's a bit like when they send people to the Olympics and things like that, where they end up sending more members of the BBC than we've got in Team GB.
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand it. I don't understand the sense of priorities. I mean, the fact is that when they're doing royal occasions, they are exporting that all the way around the world. Everybody is tuning in. Everybody is, well, not everybody, but most people are tuning in live if they can. Yeah. People really want to see it. They want to see the coronations. They want to see the funerals. They want to see the trooping of the colour. They want to see all these things. And the BBC has always done it magnificently. and for it to turn around and say, well, actually, we're going to downgrade this and promote something that happens once a year and is of interest only to certain generations, and just is not going to have any historical significance, is a madness. It's a complete madness.
It is. Unfortunately, we seem to be right in the middle of the madness. I mean, I described living in Britain at the moment with this kind of, Middle Eastern scenario going on, a bit like being in a kind of a tumble dryer. You wake up and you're going to get tumbled round and round and round, and you go back the other way, and you go back that way again. And I said this morning the clocks have changed, but nothing else has. I don't know how long we're supposed to be putting up with this rubbish for.
Well, we've been putting up with rubbish for a very long time. I don't know how long the war in the Middle East is going to go on, and that is having obviously a massive impact. And as I say, in all fairness, that is not of Keir Starmer's making. But the way we react to it is, and it probably is time that the government gets its act together right across the board and lays out what the priorities are and says how we're going to get them.
Well, that would be nice. But I don't think they know is the problem, so I'm not sure they can.
They're living day to day. They're making policy hand to mouth. That is not how you run a government. If you come in, you need a plan. I've never seen Keir Starmer's plan. I don't know what it is.
No, and I don't think he doesn't know what it is yet because nobody's told him. But we shall see. Anne, great to see you as ever. Go and follow Anne on her Substack. Look for it, and you'll enjoy everything that she puts out there. Tiny Tim, thank you, Anne, very much indeed, Anne Widdecombe. Mike, you haven't changed your clock on the wall, says Tiny Tim. Well, the clock on the wall is not my affair, I'm afraid. I'm not allowed to change it. There are certain trade union rules in the Mike Graham Show, and Pooch is in charge of the clocks. And it's the right time anyway. It's 5 to 8, isn't it? Oh, no, it's 5 to 9, you're right. But the international clock's right, because it is 6 a.m. somewhere, as we always say. Now, coming up, we've got lots and lots more to do. We want to take more of your messages. Labour at this point is petrified of losing and they're drunk on power, says One Up, in a state of shock, knowing they will be voted out. The question now is how much irreversible damage they will do to the UK's interests. And John says on the Super Chat, even English grammar on the BBC is appalling. Well, this is the trouble, isn't it? I mean, the BBC is definitely a shadow of its former self. Welcome back, Pooch, says Valerie. So they've noticed it's all going very smoothly this morning. And coming up, we're going to speak to Steve Baker, who is a British former Minister of State for Northern Ireland, of course, and also Minister of State in the Cabinet Office up to July of 2024. He's now seeking a living elsewhere because, like many Tory MPs, he didn't win his seat, unfortunately, in July of 2024. And now look what's happened. We're stuck with benefit claimants getting a 6.2% pay rise. The very members of Parliament who actually caused the cost of living to go up, £3,300 they're going to get this week because, of course, they need help paying the cost of living. It's an absolutely extraordinary state of affairs. Let's welcome Steve Baker to the Mike Graham Show. Steve, very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Mike. Thank you very much indeed for having me on.
Not at all. I mean, Anne Widdecombe put it rather well there. We're waiting to see what the plan is from Labour. We're waiting to see what it is that they're going to suggest we do to get ourselves out of this. And I admit, not entirely our own fault. But, here we are in this kind of holding pattern. But I don't think they know what to do you?
No, their only plan really is survival. Of course, that's particularly true for Keir Starmer. And if it's true for Keir Starmer, it's true of the whole Number 10 operation. That's what happens. If a Prime Minister goes, the Number 10 operation is cleared out. So they're all fighting for their political careers, and everybody who's made it to number 10 wants to stay there. So that will be their main plan. And one of the things, as you rightly pointed out with fuel, more than half of the cost of petrol is tax. And the easy way to get the fuel price down is to cut taxes. It's outrageous, really. And I'm amazed people aren't up in arms constantly about the amount of tax we pay when we fill the car. I mean, I always opposed fuel duty, but we're stuck with it.
And the thing that I think a lot of people find a bit invidious about it is that, the fuel duty comes in and then the VAT gets put on top of the tax. So you're not just paying VAT on the raw material of the energy. You're actually paying VAT on the tax.
Yeah, tax on a tax. I mean, look, you and I can both remember when fuel cost under £1 a litre. If we took the tax off, it would cost under £1 a litre again. I mean, that's the reality. But yeah, we are taxed on taxed when we fill the car, and somehow we've ended up accustomed to it. It's extraordinary. But yeah, the country desperately needs lower taxes.
Yeah, it does. But I mean, as I said earlier, we've now got this situation where the strivers, as they're called in the Daily Mail, are paying, fewer of us paying for more and more people on benefits. We had a guest on earlier who told us that as a result of an FOI inquiry, he's found out that almost 50% of people in Britain, and in some parts of Britain it's even higher, don't pay the full amount of council tax. You know, there's an awful lot of people on benefits. They're now going to get a pay rise this week. It seems extraordinary that those of us who are getting taxed more are having to pay more to make sure that people who don't do anything are somehow better off.
Yeah, and your listeners would be right to be angry about it when they're on their way to work and struggling. But the truth is that this is a recurring long-term problem. I'm old enough to remember coming into Parliament in 2010. The Labour government, even then, during what had been boom times, had failed to crack the problem of intergenerational poverty. The Centre for Social Justice had been set up. Ian Duncan Smith knew what to do. He came into power, became the Secretary of State and set about doing it. It took years to put in place universal credit. And now we find, not least because of the legacy post-COVID, that it's not working. And Labour are saying just the kinds of things we were saying after 2010. So I'd invite your listeners to think we need to do something really substantially different now. We have to accept that the welfare state as it is has failed. I think we need to get welfare back onto a basis of mutual support. I think we need a lot more philanthropy to crack the genuine causes of poverty. But we've got to do something different. This is totally unsustainable and quite wrong.
It really is. And I mean, a story on the front page, I think, of the Telegraph this morning, in which they say that something like 1 in 8 parents are now saying that they've got a child with a disability. You know, and again, you know, I'm not going to sit here and poo-poo people who have got kids who need help from one part of schooling to another, but there is a sense that there's an awful lot of diagnosis going on, shall we say, which is over the top and perhaps encouraging people to try and make themselves out to be in need of help so that they get the help.
Well, this is it. So when you're a member of Parliament, you meet plenty of people in desperate straits who really need help. And I've got many people in mind immediately who would be outraged if somebody suggested to them that they were swinging the lead. And, you know, the truth is that very large numbers of people are not. It is also the case that in the margins, of course, every parent desperately wants the best for their children. So in the margins, people want to get over the line and get that certificate to get special educational needs support. And so people are out there and others will coach them across the line. But we need to change the system of incentives so that people are much more exposed to those who are paying for the support that they receive, rather than creating enormous incentives for people to get over the line and get the benefits at the expense of their fellow workers. You know, the problem we've got is this can't go on. We're heading towards bankruptcy as a nation. And it's partly because we've all been trained by successive governments to live at the expense of everyone else. And it just can't go on.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I've got to ask you about Morgan McSweeney and the what I'm calling, I'm the only person seemingly calling it PhoneGate, but I think PhoneGate is a pretty apt description of it. I don't believe his story. There are, of course, all sorts of investigations going on. People are asking, I mean, they've now reached the sort of peak madness where Bridget Phillipson's accusing journalists who are asking her about it of being a conspiracy theorist, right, which is unbelievable. But you were in Cabinet, you know the rules as to what happens if something like that happens. And in fact, I believe you did have something stolen when you were in government.
Well, yeah, I wasn't quite in the Cabinet. I nearly made it, but not quite. I managed to become a Privy Councillor and a Minister of State, but I certainly chaired plenty of Cabinet subcommittees and attended them. Yeah, I mean, obviously, it is all very important, and government phones are a critical piece of infrastructure and a real vulnerability, and these things should be safeguarded. I certainly had a government phone, and when you have a government phone, you should be extremely careful what you say on it and why, knowing that not only is it vulnerable to foreign state interference, I mean, after all, you're a government minister or special advisor in Number 10, but also everybody should know that what they put on government phones is susceptible to being exposed in public, and they should always do their public duty. But one of the things I have observed over the years is amazing how many times people have lost their phone when it turns out their WhatsApp messages need to be scrutinised because some drama has unfolded. We saw it around the Greensill affair when David Cameron was under scrutiny. I don't think it was David's phone that had gotten missing, but I do remember an official's phone going missing. Yeah. And it's just remarkable how often it happens when those phones are crucial evidence. Yeah. people seem to get away with it.
People are surprised, though, that there's no backup. Now, Mark Littlewood, when he was here earlier, he asked an interesting question. I don't know whether you know the answer to it. But is there a reason why, for example, a government phone would not be backed up in a cloud because of security, because perhaps it's not as secure? In which case, why don't they just come out and say that? Because whenever they get asked about it, Bridget Phillipson sort of said, well, I follow the rules. And you're kind of going, well, that's fine. But what are the rules? Are you supposed to back it up? Are you not supposed to back it up? What's it all about?
Well, so when I was in the Northern Ireland office, I was also, as you said, in the Cabinet office, but I had a Northern Ireland office phone, and the system there was that we actually used Google products and platforms, which I think were all backed up. But obviously, you could use WhatsApp as well. But there's an element of sort of fair play. I mean, we should have done, everybody, as I did, should only do government business on their government phone and should accept that it's always backed up. I'm afraid the truth is, hubris very often overtakes people in public life, as we've often seen. You think about, the Mandelson scandal. People think they'll get away with things, and once they've got into their head that they're in power and will get away with things, they start behaving stupidly. And it shouldn't happen, but it always does. And it's something I've always guarded against and said to my staff, you must guard against. Don't engage in hubris. Whatever the rules are, obey the rules. Don't bend the rules, just obey them.
Yeah, exactly. It's not that difficult. I mean, I'm told you had a laptop stolen from
I did,
your Portcullis House office, which for people who don't know is the sort of rather large, ugly building opposite Big Ben, which is where a lot of MPs have offices. So what happened there?
Yeah, well, I did an evening event nearby. I'd left a personal MacBook Air, I think it was, on my desk in Portcullis House.
Right.
And for whatever reason, I voted and I decided I knew the laptop was on my desk in Portcullis House, locked away in a locked office. And I thought, it'll be fine overnight. And I went to my accommodation directly from voting and left it overnight. And it wasn't there in the morning. And I absolutely couldn't believe it. But what was extraordinary when I reported it is the lack of seriousness with which it was dealt. It was almost like it was my fault for leaving a laptop out in my locked office in Portcullis House behind a police guard in a secure area. But bear in mind, they have not only CCTV in the corridors, but they also have electronic keys for all the doors. So they ought to be able to show which key was used to unlock the door when. And the police were not interested in scouring the CCTV footage or the key records. And as I pointed out to them, this is a member of Parliament's laptop stolen from Parliament in an environment where we know we're the object of Foreign Intelligence Service's attention. And I really just couldn't get any interest in it having been stolen.
But which is meant to be secure, right? As well. So they never bothered to find out who did it.
Well, indeed, but a very limited number of people had access to my office, although obviously, a number of members of staff would have had keys. But I wouldn't want to cast around about who might have done it. That was the job of the police. They should have looked at the CCTV and the key records, and they didn't do it. And I know police officers do work extremely hard and are often extremely disappointed when they do get the evidence but can't get the convictions, and villains end up out on the streets again. But in circumstances like that, where the evidence should have been easily available, well, it should have been pursued. But
you would think. But that was a personal computer on the government one, though, right?
It was a personal computer, yes, but it was a personal computer I used for political work. So, I mean, certainly on that laptop were various records of things we'd organised during the course of Brexit politics, but thankfully all on an encrypted folder in there. But there we are.
I mean, looking past the sort of the craziness of the McSweeney story, it doesn't sound as though government communications are all that secure to me.
Well, so it depends which government communications. So obviously the most secure systems are absolutely secure, and I can't talk about those, but obviously I've got some passing awareness of them from my time working on national security as a minister, and the secure systems really are secure. The problem really is that the more secure you are, the more overheads there are in operating that system, the more closely controlled access has to be, and so on. So you end up with routine business being conducted on fairly normal systems. But very often that's okay. Connections usually are encrypted. But so you've just got to be very careful when you're a minister or an official about the level of classification of the material you're dealing with. So, even what meetings you're having. having a meeting this afternoon with a particular person might be sensitive in the sense that, everybody's entitled, if they're coming to see a meeting, they're entitled to a degree of privacy about when they come in until the records are released subsequently that the minister met the particular person. However, if you're under close protection having a meeting in Northern Ireland, it's absolutely vital that the details of where you're going to be and when are not released in advance, because there's a material threat to your life and well-being, and indeed to the police officers if that material comes out. And I just use that to illustrate that there are different levels of sensitivity to different information, and it's important that the right protection is applied to the right communications. I'm afraid it is a bit complicated, but there's no excuse for the Morgan McSweeneys of this world for using the wrong communication channels.
No, exactly right. Exactly right. Now, you've been working on something for a while called Fighting for a Free Future, which is your new project. Tell us about that.
Well, what we're doing is we're working to really amplify voices for freedom. There is a Substack, a podcast, a community, merchandise and educational program. So we're helping equip young professionals to be better advocates for a free society. We know they'll go on to be special advisors, parliamentary workers, members of parliament, maybe even ministers one day. Maybe journalists, and we want to help equip them to understand the principles of a free society, and over the years ahead make sure we can get out of this mess. It's a long-term project. We might have some short-term wins, but it emerges out of someone saying to me, Steve, you should have a think tank. And I said, well, that's very flattering, but there are plenty of great think tanks. Why don't I set something up to amplify the ones we've got? So that's what we're doing. In some cases, we support the think tanks, whether they like it or not. But that's what we've done. We've set up a movement to really advance freedom, and it's going quite well.
Okay. Well, that's good to hear, because freedom is very much at the forefront of what we do as well, because we feel, anyway, under this government, that they would quite like to curtail quite a lot of the freedoms that we've got. I mean, we're hearing already some suggestions of people perhaps being advised not to drive as much as they used to, or perhaps, maybe as a result of what your license plate says, your number plate, you don't drive on a Monday or Tuesday. These kinds of, this government seems very enthusiastic about championing, government policy over freedom.
But these guys are people who want to control us all, and that is absolutely the case. So they've announced a new bill which will entrench a duty to discriminate. They won't put it in those terms, but a duty to discriminate in order to pursue some conception of justice in outcomes. And this is socialism writ large. It entrenches injustice. But, justice is in the process. We should all get what we deserve. We go to work, we work hard. We should be able to enjoy the fruits of what we've gained by serving others in a free market. That's the idea of a just process. But of course, the socialists believe that whatever you do, you should have an equal outcome. And that is a complete perversion of principles of justice. And yet it is what this Labour government believes. But yes, certainly in pursuit of net zero and whatever, they will seek to control all of our behaviour. And that's why I think that socialism and the Labour Party is so dangerous. I mean, there are always, and there will always be, examples of how they wish to control us. They'll be in favour of facial recognition everywhere we go. They'll be in favour of central bank digital currencies. It will just go on because they're just very, very naive about the beneficial effects of the coercive power of the state. And it's really frightening.
Well, let's hope they'll show us that nice video of Morgan McSweeney being mugged when they look at the CCTV footage, because it'd be a shame if that wasn't made available to us. But
Wouldn't
this
it be
was
a shame,
a troubling stat that I saw at the weekend. At least 224 out of the 257 new Labour MPs elected in July 24 have come from either charity or communications and lobbying agencies, or were formerly political employees. And that's a worry for me as well, because you've ended up now with a government and a leading party of government who haven't really got any experience of anything commercial or anything in any way, private.
Well, that is absolutely right. I mean, over the years, I've become a bit more relaxed about having some members of parliament with a political career behind them, because actually, when you're under the torrent of pressure from the public, it's good to have a few MPs around who are expecting it and know how to cope with it. But most members of parliament do need to be from normal life, the kind of life where if you don't go to work, the money stops coming in. The kind of life where if you don't raise invoices or don't get them paid, the money stops coming in. We don't need too many members of parliament who think that the money will always arrive, whatever you do at work. And I'm afraid that there is an element of that. Charities, of course, slightly different because they have to demonstrate to their donors that they're delivering value. But we can't have all of life based on charity. We need people with real commercial experience, people with technical expertise. We need a representative parliament. But why don't we have one? I'm sorry, folks, it's because you don't go to selection meetings and vote for a better candidate. People could absolutely multiply their power in politics, in democratic politics, if they joined the party of their choice, went to the selection meeting. You know, I was reselected for the last general election by about 11 people. I think it was 11 people to represent an electorate of 75,000. Now, clearly I lost. But, you know, go and be in the room and select the candidate and say to people who aren't good enough, no, be gone, next. Because that's why we get these poor quality MPs with the wrong experience. And I'm afraid it's our own fault in a democracy.
Yeah. I think there's some truth to that being the case in a lot of things, a lot of our own fault. But, you know, anyway, listen, Steve, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. And we'll see you again soon, I hope.
Mike, I look forward to it. Thanks very much. And congratulations on the growth of your show. It's great to see.
It is great to see. Thank you very much indeed. In fact, very kind of you to mention that, because there was a piece that I put out last week, actually, or last night, I should say. Rishi Sunak wrote a piece in the Sunday Times saying that the YouTube's reach in Britain now exceeds all of the BBC's channels combined. To which I said, well, there's a good reason for that, because we're on it, but for an absolute start. Love the way that you're reacting to the show this morning. This from Strats, who says, hi, Mike, could you wish Jean from Basildon good luck? She's going into hospital next week for a hip replacement. She never misses your programme. Thank you very much. That's super chat from Strats. And one from John, politicians equal privilege, perversions and policies. Yeah, I mean, but listen, I mean, there's some truth to what Steve Baker said there, and I'm not going to blame the people of the country for what the politicians are doing to ruin it. Our politicians need to be criminally liable, says John. But, you know, there is something to be said for selecting better, better candidates so that they don't end up running the country on behalf of a very small sector of society. Simple as that. Do we need to do some news, Pooch? No? That's a good one. Yeah, this is from Seaside Babe. The Labour government is horrendous. Brilliant. We've got a great, actually, something interesting sent to the Substackers Brigade, people who are looking for... By the way, if you're looking for bumper stickers, I think we're almost out of them, but if you still want one, I think we might just have a few left. You might be able to soak up the final version. But somebody sent us a herring, believe it or not, as opposed to a heron. And you never guess, I don't know if I should say this, you never guess where it's ended up. In Ziggy's mouth. Yeah. I can send you a picture if you like, but I don't know, I may have to take advice on that. And there's also a herring tie that's come in. We can't have herrings and herons, can we? No. It's a heron scenario. The herring, I'm afraid, will be... Maybe we should move into herrings, yeah. Although somebody did send some herring in for Ziggy, which he liked. He quite liked it. Anyway... yeah, let's do a bit of Bridget Phillipson, because Bridget Phillipson...
Morgan McSweeney, the only person in the modern world who doesn't have his messages automatically backed up to the cloud so that we can recover them and see what traffic there was between him and our former ambassador to the United States.
I mean, I think your question's a bit of a reach in terms of
Why?
In terms of that. Well, I'm not... It's hyperbole and you know it, but...
No, it's perfectly straightforward. Are your messages backed up?
Are your messages backed up? All she says is, I adhere to all of the current regulations and rules, which, of course, is not the answer. Are there any danger of any of these politicians actually answering the question with a yes or a no answer? Let's talk to Intel Lady, who is, of course, very, very much Bridget Phillipson. I have to say, Intel Lady, that you have suddenly emerged as a bit of a superstar in the last sort of month or so. Welcome, Bridget. And I'm very pleased to see that you're making sure that Morgan McSweeney's case is being properly investigated.
It is being investigated, and I think we need to leave the police to do their job. We need to back away from all of these ridiculous conspiracy theories. Now, it's drifting into conspiracy theories now, Mike, and we really need to focus on the most important things at the moment. We are now in the school holidays, and I don't think anybody realises that there are millions of children now wondering where their free breakfast is. Where is it? Who's going to provide it? There's frantic parents looking into their iPhone 17s, trying to work out how to do breakfast, how to where we can go to get it. It's an absolute disaster, and I think that's where the focus needs to be.
And I mean, obviously, when Parliament is in recess during Easter, Bridget, you'll be able to have some downtime as well. Will you be spending it with your family, or will you be going abroad or anything like that? What are your plans?
No, I'm going to be worried about the children not getting the breakfasts. That's all I'm going to be thinking about the whole time.
It's a very dangerous time to be alive, because obviously poor Morgan McSweeney, as you quite rightly said, he was mugged. Everybody knows what happened, apparently. But a lot of people are saying they don't believe that he was mugged, and actually they think his phone... in fact, we did a poll on this show, and a lot of people think his phone is up Peter Mandelson's backside.
I mean, that's just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. What a ridiculous thing to say. And doing a poll like that, no wonder you were booted from talk. How absolutely ridiculous.
Listen, I'm just reflecting the mood of the nation, Bridget. You know, they're not very happy with you, it has to be said, or your government.
I've had nothing but positive feedback, to be honest. That's all I hear. And people said to me, Bridget, this is ridiculous now. All of these conspiracy theories about Morgan McSweeney, when people should be focusing entirely on breakfast clubs and how well the Labour government are tackling 14 years of Tory failure. That's what people on the street are actually definitely totally saying to me. But people like you are just stirring up trouble.
Listen, I'm just doing my job, Bridget. I have to hold government ministers to account. That's what I'm asked to do. And so therefore, what can you tell me about Keir Starmer at the moment? Because there's a lot of talk that he's finished, and that basically come May, when Labour gets completely slaughtered in the elections, the local elections, that he's going to have to go.
I think he's doing a cracking job. He's really doing well. Everybody thinks so. And nobody thinks that he is going to lose his job. No one thinks that at all. It's again, more conspiracy theories. The public are behind him. They think he's a great, what a guy. He's got a cracking personality, and everybody, just every time he opens his mouth, everybody is completely transfixed and thinks this is the man that is leading us through a war that we are definitely not involved in, and we feel totally safe in the United Kingdom, and that is our man. So, conspiracy theories again.
Now, there was a story at the weekend that said that almost all of the Labour MPs now in Parliament have never really had a proper job. They've either, like yourself, come from a charity background, or they've worked for a trade union, or they've been in some way in the public sector, in lobbying firms or political appointments, you know. Do you not think that the Labour government doesn't represent the proper hard-working people of this country?
This is simply not true. As you can see behind me, I have got work clothes hanging up. Look, I've got a hard hat. Look, see the hard hat there, and the high vis, just in case I need to get cracking with some. They might make me a housing minister, I don't know. And if that is the case, I need to be seen walking around housing developments. So we've always got one of these handy just in case that happens. But actually, I did a paper round and I babysat kids when I was younger. So I have done proper jobs. So I don't want to hear this. You do not know everything about every single MP. Ridiculous.
Well, listen, we look forward to the days that you're in charge of the government, Bridget. Some people do, because that would be even funnier than Keir Starmer, wouldn't it?
I think you'll find that, look, I am very happy with where I am. I'm happy to be doing the position. I feel honoured to be doing the position that I am doing, and I'm going to continue to do that.
And if there was to be a leadership election, who would you be backing?
Look, I'm not going to get drawn into that, Mike. I think you think you're clever doing that, but I am not going to get drawn into that. There will not be any such thing. Keir Starmer is the Prime Minister. He is your Prime Minister, whether you like it or not. And that is how it is definitely going to stay. I think that will remain the case for a very long time to come.
Now, I'm hoping that you're going to be able to join us as Bridget Phillipson. I know that the Intel lady's coming to our big bash on May the 6th, the Shepherd's Bush Empire. Tickets are still available from Ticketmaster, but we've sold a lot of them. But we're really looking forward to you coming, Jen, as Jen, but also looking forward to you coming as... Hello. It's brilliant. But I mean, the stuff you've been doing, and I've got to just get you out of Bridget Phillipson for a minute. The stuff you've been doing on Hannah Spencer and Emily Maitlis is genius, and it seems to have sort of propelled you into a new place.
Well, I absolutely love doing Emily. I mean, who doesn't love the dulcet tones of Emily Maitlis, patronising the absolute bejesus out of everybody. She's hard to do because I have to make sure I've got enough bronzer on. Because
but she's also brilliant. It is brilliant. In fact, we've got a clip. Let's have a look. Shall we play the clip, Pooch?
So let's come back to the war that's broken out in Iran, and I would like to know how would the Green Party navigate the war if they were in charge, if they were in government? How would they navigate this very volatile situation? I think if the Green Party were in government during time of war, I think Zach would be absolutely amazing at bringing all sides together and sitting them down and saying, right, first of all, let's do some basic breathing exercises, like deep breathing.
It's brilliant. It's genius. And the Urdu subtitles, just fantastic. I mean, is that just scrawl or is it actual Urdu?
No, I don't think we've got them for long because you get a free trial for a short amount of time that you can do that. So sadly, the Urdu subtitles will end shortly because I'm not paying a ridiculous amount of money to be able to do that.
No, but it's really kind of. I mean, have you noticed it's kind of catapulted you up the kind of in the. I think it has. Anyway, it could be. I mean, maybe I'm just talking rubbish, but it seems to me that a lot more people are aware of you and are loving what you're doing.
Oh, I appreciate that. I mean, I've been at this quite a long time,
yeah,
and I'm always looking for to change. I don't like to do the same thing over and over, so I'm always looking to change. Although the one thing that does remain is I always get the wrong side. We always have to have a James O'Brien.
James O'Brien, yeah.
Somewhere in the background, haunting everyone. It's like a woke "Where's Wally?" Where's James today? There's always somebody. I mean, I should have a video hopefully going out tonight covering the ridiculous story. I don't know if you've heard this story about the bookshop in Leeds that charged people 25 pence to deface a J.K. Rowling.
Oh, really?
No,
I didn't miss that one.
And then they auctioned off, they're such good people, they auctioned off the book and gave the money to trans healthcare.
Of course.
So you could write all these obnoxious, disgusting things in the book, and then they're such heroes, aren't they? So I've had a go at that. Hopefully that'll be up later. Yes. And I look at what's topical, what's going on, how many ridiculous people are doing ridiculous things, and then I'll cover it. I love Hannah Spencer. She's the gift that keeps on giving.
I know.
And
I take it you've seen her performance on Saturday, her and Zach
Oggy,
dancing.
Oggy,
which seems to be the new Green Party slogan. It's like, what?
It is. She is just unbelievable. Perhaps she will come to Shepherd's Bush as well,
I think
because, obviously, she's got to teach all of these far-right adjacent people coming into your audience exactly how big it is and ridiculous they actually are. So, of course I might bring the dogs because I know that you lot like dogs for some reason, and I'll bring my dogs, although I won't, I'll make sure that my fan doesn't have to look after them. Zach had to look after them when I brought them down to Parliament. I thought, Mike, I honestly thought you could bring your dogs into Parliament because this bloke who sits near the front sometimes, and he's got a dog, and it's always like asleep at his feet. So I thought that I could bring my dogs as well, but apparently his is like a service dog.
Yeah.
So, it's different, but whatevs. But anyway, the dogs came to Parliament in a way. They were outside with Zach, but it was still good. It was still a really good day. So,
Brilliant. Well, I'm really looking forward to it. You're coming down, I think, to do Plank of the Week with us this week.
yes.
Are you? Good.
Not this week, the following week.
Following week, okay. All right, good. So by then we'll have got a plan for what we're going to do at the live show, because I know that you're quite keen to find out. I'm quite keen. It's a bit like Keir Starmer's policies, I'm quite keen to find out. He's quite keen to find out what they are as well. So, but we'll have a lot of fun, and we're really looking forward to it. So thank you for joining us today, and
Pleasure.
Have a good week, and we will see you soon.
Thanks, Mike.
Not at all.
Bye,
Great to see you.
everyone.
Intel lady, part of the crew who are going to be at Shepherd's Bush alongside Lewis MacLeod, who's also another great impressionist, incredible man. Donald MacLeod's brother. Donald's going to be there, of course, as well. Pooch will be there producing it all. We'll also have Right Said Fred, who are going to be coming along. I was rather watching something the other day, Pooch. I don't know whether you know this, but apparently the Right Said Fred, one of them played with David Bowie and one of them played with Bob Dylan.
Yeah, no.
So I didn't know that. So that will give us something to ask them about, which will be on top of all of the other stuff that we'll do. And also, we've got Carol Decker coming from T'Pau. She's got a new album out, which we played a little bit of last week. You'll have remembered that. So loads going on. And as I say, if you need a ticket, if you haven't got one, do come and join us on May the 6th. It's the night before the local election, so it could be the last chance you have to make fun of Keir Starmer as Prime Minister, because maybe by the following day you'll be gone. With a bit of luck. That would be great, wouldn't it? Oh, right. Is that a town?
2 villages over.
2 villages over from Pooch's place in France. That's brilliant. You drive on the right there. Or the left, who can say? Brilliant stuff. Pooch, great to see you back. Thank you very much indeed. Thanks to Charlotte for setting everything up. Thanks to all of you, of course, for listening to what we did today and watching it. Pooch is Pooch, of course. Yeah, Pooch is Pooch. Let's have a look. Oh, this is great, yeah.
Clouseau. Paris. Strike. Dana. Colombo.
Right. Dana.
Quince.
Colombo. Gwent.
Mouse. Velma. Daphne.
Daphne's
Poirot.
good.
Maud. Doug.
They just look so happy, don't they? Here he comes. Brilliant. Those are the gun dogs. That's fantastic, isn't it? Absolutely brilliant. Enough to make you smile for the rest of the day, hopefully. We'll be back tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock sharp, of course. Kelvin McKenzie returns tomorrow. He's going to be here giving us the benefit of his wisdom on a variety of subjects, I dare say. I'm not quite sure what we'll have for you tomorrow, other than the result of what Keir Starmer thinks he's going to do to help save the economy. But I don't think we need to look forward to that terribly much, do we? Anyway, listen, if you haven't done it yet, please go to the YouTube channel, like it and subscribe to it. We're very close to 13 million views. We're very close to 150,000 subscribers as well. If you want to join our Substack, you can do that, which is, of course, themikegrahamshow.com. There's lots of good stuff on there, including Ask Mike, which we're now doing every weekend, where me and Ziggy answer your questions, which you can submit. And have a lovely Monday. Easter is coming, as I say. The clocks have changed, but not much else has. We'll see you tomorrow.
Don't you forget now to like and subscribe and all the socials out there, especially our YouTube channel, flannel.